Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parent Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the greatest entitled parent stories we read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled parents you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that if this video gets 1,000 likes, she won't try to speak to anyone's manager for an entire week. So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. And become an official member of the Re-Army today, and I'll give you a shout out in an upcoming video. r/Entitled Parents. Karen demands I pay her overdue medical bills. My significant other, 30 female, and I, 34 male, recently mutually agreed to separate for a while. We used to live together in my place, and now she's staying at her mom's. She came over to collect belongings for herself and our daughter, who's 8, which was slightly annoying. I offered to drive items over as I didn't want her in my space, but I allowed it. Her first comment coming in was a disparaging remark about the mess of the place, which wasn't nice to hear. In the process of sorting through things, significant other found some medical bills addressed to her that never got paid. Now, it's possible that I saw them and forgot to tell her, but my thinking is that she had an equal chance to see them and it wasn't on me to tell her. These were all fees billed to her name, since our daughter is under her insurance. A couple had late fees. Significant other was irate and demanded that I pay the late fees from my separate savings. In her words, it was my responsibility to tell her about them and I didn't. My response was that she had an equal chance to see them, and plus she likely would have gotten email and phone notifications about the bills too. Also, she knows I was laid off and my savings aren't exactly great, so it was like rubbing salt in the wound. So I refused to pay. However, the bills are for my daughter, so I do feel a bit bad about it. Am I the jerk? Edit, since it's been asked. These were all bills that came in when she was living with me, so she could have seen them just as well as me. Second edit. Okay, clearing a few things up. First and foremost, I love my daughter. It's insulting to even be asked. I've taken her to dozens of doctor's appointments without fail over 8 years, 9 if you count driving my pregnant significant other everywhere, and I missed an appointment 1 time. And yes, I set an alarm, but I slept through it. Everyone makes mistakes. Also, I was not out drinking with my buddies, and that's never been in my posts. We were playing Dungeons and Dragons. Having said that, it's been a rough 9 years. Have any of you ever taken care of a special needs kid who wakes up screaming in pain at all hours of the night? It's awful to see someone you love suffer like that, while all your time and finances circle the drain just making sure she's taken care of. I never signed up for this. I feel like I've been getting mentally eroded ever since the baby came. Then I lost my job, and things took even more of a nosedive while I desperately searched for a job, couldn't find one, and was constantly reminded of my new status as housemaid by my significant other pushing chores on me. I wasn't going to get into all of that because I was attempting to present a discrete issue here, but there you have it. As far as the late fees go, if I had my old well-paying job right now, I'd pay it in the blink of an eye, but I don't. I'm nearly bankrupt, whereas my significant other is getting regular income. It feels cruel for her to drain me more when she knows I'm in a vulnerable financial spot. She's always advocated for separate finances, and now I see why. Third edit. I apologized and offered to pay the late fees. I get it, I'm the jerk. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OB or his wife? Please let us know. Oh, I can't wait to read what our audience thinks about this. My high school tried to punish me for filing a lawsuit against them. I used it to get into my dream college. In 2008, I was involved in a federal lawsuit when my rural Texas high school tried to suspend me for wearing a shirt supporting then Democratic hopeful John Edwards. Hindsight is 2020. They said it was a violation of the dress code, which was only ever selectively enforced. My parents had my back and agreed that it was, to quote my dad, a bunch of nonsense. I'll never forget during the initial meeting when my principal called in a school board member. He said that if I got suspended, I would probably get kicked off the football team, and that could hurt me getting into college. It didn't matter. I was a miserable player and a smart kid, so it wasn't gonna be what took me to college. But the slimy fake concern as he tried to leverage my future against my speech is something that I'll never forget. Anyway, as the case goes on, the squeeze gets tighter. First, they have the football coaches try to get me to drop it. Having the football coaches talk about how my selfishness means that they can't wear Fellowship of Christian Athlete shirts anymore, trying to embarrass me in front of the team. I'm a fat kid who openly plays Magic the Gathering in high school. Hit me with your best shot. I have no shame. Next, they host a meeting with all the teachers telling me that I'm a problem and that they need to keep an eye on me in case I slip up. I found this out years after the fact when I bumped into my English teacher at a friend's wedding. Finally, they just started pulling in students from my classes to get them to say bad stuff about me. I was a class clown, so this turns into every single dirty joke, rude comment, or loud fart I ever made getting reported to school administration, which then leads to this awful little toady vice principal calling me and my parents in and reading them back in front of my mother. That one stung. My parents still knew it was BS, but who wants their locker room jokes aired in front of their mom? They used this as pretext to expel me for 6 weeks, citing inappropriate conduct. They shoved me into the disciplinary alternative education program, and I am steaming. The program is basically where they warehouse kids with emotional problems they can't handle. You just sit in a room in a refurbished insane asylum and can't do anything but read or use the computer for monitored educational purposes. You also get booted from extracurriculars while you're in there. I know at this point they want me to make a scene so they can punish me further. So I do the exact opposite. I channel all my rage and new free time into my schoolwork. Doing homework I would usually ignore because I knew I could ace the test. Now I'm doing both and my GPA is climbing. I start looking into scholarships and find a bunch that are really interested in political activism. And guess who knows a little bit about that? I apply and rip my school a new one in every one. Then I work with my dad and we find an attorney who will take our case pro bono, which means while the school bleeds fees, it doesn't cost us anything to keep it in court. I spent those weeks like a monk, motivated entirely by spite, doing everything I could to make their BS work for me. I got out, got back on all my teams, and ended up applying for a prestigious honors program at my dream school. Not only did I get in, but I got way more financial support than I thought I would. Eventually, we lost the case, but the school had to abolish the dress code anyway because they couldn't afford to get sued over it again. I don't like the idea that a school lost money, but man, they made the choice. They could have backed down whenever. Now I've graduated law school, am taking the bar in 2 weeks, and already have a job investigating government corruption. I'm getting paid to be a pain in the butt of petty authority, and it's pretty sweet. Have you ever had to follow a dress code that you thought was ridiculous? If so, what was wrong with it? Please let us know. As long as I get to wear my Live, Laugh, Love shirt, I think I'll be okay. Am I the jerk for going on a chore strike and putting down blunt rules for my boyfriend? My boyfriend moved in with me at the end of last year. He lost his job due to lockdown and was struggling with paying rent. I hated to see him that way, so I asked if he would like to move in with me. I laid down some rules. I said I wanted him to find a job, any job. Doesn't have to be amazingly paying, just to help out with the bills. But in the meantime, I said I wanted him to help me with chores, grocery shopping, cooking, general household duties as I am paying for us both, as well as the house. In the 5 months he's been here, he has not managed to find a job. I kept linking him to job adverts, and even went as far as to ask my stepdad if he can get my boyfriend a job at his warehouse, to which my stepdad agreed to, but my boyfriend rejected the offer, saying he wouldn't be comfortable with that. Even though he would not be doing any heavy lifting, he would have been working at the cafe serving the warehouse workers. Him not finding a job hasn't been the end of the world, but what really was the last straw was when I realized that every time I finished working, I would subconsciously start cleaning up and doing the chores that he hasn't done all day. I sat down with him and first asked if he was maybe struggling with depression or anything else that may be causing him to not want to find a job or have motivation to do housework. But he replied saying he was not depressed, it's just hard to find a job and hard to find the time to clean up every day. But he said he will try and put some time aside to clean up. So I thought, okay, and hoped that would be the end. But absolutely nothing changed. And because I already tried speaking with him, I decided to pin a chart to the fridge and ask my boyfriend to put a tick next to the chores he does every day. He literally ticked 4 boxes in the whole week. 4. Anyway, when I showed him this, his excuse was that I enjoy cleaning and he doesn't. So that means it's okay for me to upkeep the whole house myself. I told him I'm going on strike, and for over a week I haven't touched a chore. He's been really upset with me over this, asking why I'm punishing him like this and calling me a jerk for forcing him to live in this kind of an environment. I told him, once he starts cleaning, I will help him and it will stay like this. He needs to at least help me 50%. So, am I the jerk for going on strike? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is her boyfriend? Please let us know.
Wow, Mr. Reddit, that guy sounds almost as useless as you are.
Accuse me of cheating on an open book collaborative exam? Fine, I'll report myself to the Honor Council. This happened about 10 years ago at my American university. I enrolled in a class that two friends also happened to enroll in, an elective for our major. The professor, whom I will call Professor Y, told us straight off the bat that our entire grade would be based on 2 exams that would be open book, and we could collaborate with anyone else in the class as long as we cited that we did so. Additionally, it was the kind of exam where you could submit it as many times as you want before the deadline. Professor Y's rules, though, were that he'd grade easiest on the first try and much tougher with each subsequent try. Fair enough. Now, some background on this professor. I'm not defending him, but I do think this context is important. He immigrated to the States from another country where they look down on women, and the often expectations of women were to be meek and quiet. Maybe less so nowadays, but definitely more so when he was growing up. In class one day, a female student challenged the professor. He argued back. She admitted he made a good point, and he said to her, "You are very agreeable. You'd make a great wife." Now at this point, I probably should have reported him. However, we all apparently let it slide. He was in his late 60s, he had tenure, so I think we all brushed it aside as harmless. Hindsight 2020. I am female, by the way. Fast forward a few weeks into the semester, and the first exam is given to us. My male friend, David, and I did the test together. We submitted it on the same day. On the bottom of my test, I wrote, "Worked with David," because I wanted to follow the professor's rules. A few days later, we all get our first attempt at the test back. David scored the equivalent of about a C. Remember, he had further chances to improve. My test had a big fat 0 at the top with the words "cheater" written on it. I was shocked. I obviously held back after class and asked why this was written on my test, and Professor Y started screaming at me.
I hate liars. I hate people like you. You are scum. You are a liar.
I could not believe what I was hearing. I was sobbing, explaining that he said, and it was in the syllabus, that we could work with other students. I asked where I had cheated, and Professor Y literally underlined the first 5 words of one question, where both David and I had started off the paragraph saying something like, "The reason that we are seeing these results is," and that was it. I asked him why he thought I cheated and not David, but Professor Y would not listen to me, continued to insult me until I left. Now, my university was super strict about plagiarism and cheating. We got emails like once a week about the Honor Council. All the emails said that anyone caught cheating would be reported to the Honor Council and sit trial. So I went to their office and reported myself. They were all confused and were like, "Oh, wait, you're reporting yourself, not the professor?" And I told them calmly that I had been accused and given a 0 without any evidence, so I wanted to sit trial. They incredulously told me no student had ever asked for a trial, but I was following the university rules and I was confident I would win. Needless to say, Professor Y was not happy. At the next class, he pulled me after class and screamed yet again that they were his rules in his class and he decides the grades, not the Honor Council. I said that's not the university policy, and if he thought I was cheating, he should have gone to them. Since he didn't, I did. He was livid and tried to bully me to back down, but I didn't. We had the trial and I obviously won. At the end of the semester, I organized a meeting with the dean of the school and filed a formal complaint against Professor Y. The dean, also incredulous, promised to launch a formal investigation into this professor and would be meeting with him to discuss. I'm sure that nothing happened besides a slap on the wrist, but even a slap on the wrist was worth it. Edit. Wow, what a nice surprise to wake up to. Thank you all for the awards. I also want to add that I looked it up and he is retired, so nothing can be done now. I also stumbled upon his Rate My Professor page, and his rating is 1 out of 5 stars. Most of the comments are, his tests are stupid and he grades based on his mood that day. I'd be very curious to know if these are all women writing these reviews. Also, my major is in a STEM field. I forgot to add this note, but there were only 3 women in my entire class, of like 30 students, but still. One woman was told she'd make a good wife, and I was accused of cheating. It's just such a shame that women are trying to break into the hard sciences, and yet things like this happen that discourage us. I also am so curious about why so many people have guessed BYU, and why if it were BYU, it's not, it would change everything. Someone please provide me more information. Second edit. Thank you everyone who has offered more information on BYU's Honor Council. Thankfully, this Honor Council was more focused on academic integrity and nothing like the HCO at BYU.
I was really hoping something horrible would have happened to that professor. That guy sounds like a real jerk.
I know, Karen. I was thinking the same thing. Am I the jerk for giving the in-law suite to my daughter after I told my stepdaughter she couldn't have it because we were going to rent it? I have a 19-year-old daughter, W, and a 17-year-old stepdaughter, K. Husband and I have been married for 5 years. When we got married, we bought a new house that had a half-finished in-law suite in the basement with a separate entrance. Over the past 5 years, we've been renovating it and it's close to completion. Last year, Kay asked us if she could live in there during college as her dream school is only half an hour away, so it would make no sense for her to live on campus, her words. But then she could have a dorm-like experience. My husband and I said no, as we had plans to either take on a tenant or make it an Airbnb. She took it well. It's nearly completed. Recently, however, W came to us and said that she's pregnant. Father isn't sticking around. She's almost done with her trade certification and can afford a baby, but apartments in our area are expensive. After discussing it, we told W she could live in the in-law suite for what she could afford in terms of rent. The suite has 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a bathroom. It's also soundproof, so the baby won't keep anyone up. Kay is furious. She said she asked for it first and was told no. I explained this was different and that W would pay for some rent. She couldn't. Plus, Kay lives with her mom half the time, but W's dad lives in another country. We are her only support. Kay is upset and thinks she deserves the suite and the baby can go in her old room. I said no. Are we being jerks? Edit. People are asking why can't my stepdaughter pay rent? If she got a part-time job in college, and it'd have to be part-time given her major and she plans on playing a sport, she'd at most be able to pay us $500 a month. The space is worth $1,800 to $2,000 a month. My stepdaughter can pay $1,300 a month. It just makes more financial sense for my daughter to rent it. Edit 2. People keep assuming that I'm throwing out my stepdaughter or that she thinks she doesn't have a place here. She is aware she can live with us forever if that's what she chooses. She can live in her current room rent-free while she goes to college and beyond. It's her room. Her room. We just weren't giving her the suite rent-free. She has her own room and her own bathroom. Edit 3. Many people are making assumptions about my daughter's financial state. She has shown me a plan for how she can raise this baby, and it doesn't include my money. And yes, I know the father owes child support, irrelevant to topic at hand. We also discussed it and will give Kay W's old room to be a living/office space with a mini fridge and microwave, as the suggestion of some of you. Thank you. A lot of people have said a lot that comes as projection, and please read the actual post and ask before you make assumptions about how much privacy my kids have. Well, what do you think? Was OP the jerk for what they did or not? Please let us know. Tell me to drop the class if I don't like your rules? Okay, then you'll lose 5 students and your job. This happened years ago, but a post on here reminded me of it. So when I was a freshman in college, I registered for a basic English 102 course that doubled as a humanities credit. I thought, great, 2 birds, 1 stone, despite the rate my professor for this class being abysmal at best. A few things to note. I have ADHD and dyslexia, B's, D's, P's, and G's, so I have a hard time reading most times, but especially handwritten stuff, even my own. It's also important to note that I had an ADA allowance on file, meaning I get some permissions to allow me to take classes and function as normally as possible. These permissions included use of my tablet during class to write notes and about an hour longer on tests. Well, first day of class, the professor strolls in with the arrogance and snobitude of someone who thinks they're getting tenured this year. He starts talking, going over the syllabus, and says, "There will be no phones, laptops, or technology of any kind in my class. You will write all your notes by hand," which isn't going to work for me. So I raise my hand and ask him if I can talk to him privately about the rule. That went over about as well as a lead balloon, and he starts getting snippy and says, "Anything you need to talk with me about can be found in the syllabus." But again, I said that I needed to talk to him and that it was pretty important. Finally, he just says to say it to the class. He doesn't have time to deal with whining of any kind. Like, okay, dude. So I say that I'm dyslexic and need my tablet to do the notes and read the assignments, and that my ADA permissions are on file and emailed to all my professors before class. He says,
Yeah, I saw the email, but I don't care. You can do the work just like everyone else. You're not special.
The class goes deadly quiet at that. I'm absolutely shocked at his bold and completely hilarious lack of awareness and care for his job. I'm staring at him open mouthed, and he thinks he's won. He got this smug little look on his face, like I've just been told, and there are no other options, nor is there any way he'll regret his behavior. One of the girls in class finally finds her voice and calls him out on his ableism and lack of decorum. But he cuts her off, saying,
If you don't like my rules, you can drop the class.
So she says, okay, and pulled out her laptop and dropped the class right in front of him. And taking the cue from her, 3 other students and I do the same, and we leave class together at the same time. I've never met this girl before, but she then asks me if I want to go to the dean, because honestly, I'm really shaken. So I said yes, and we go straight there, telling the dean of students what happened as well as the ADA counselor. They took the girl's statement and mine and discovered that this professor had pulled this crap for years, but nobody wanted to get involved. 6 months later, I hear that not only had the professor not been tenured, but he was fired and blacklisted from teaching at the collegiate level. Edit. Wow, this blew up. Oh my goodness. Thank you guys so much for the awards, and I'm trying to reply to everyone, but it's a lot. I really appreciate the awards, but please don't spend real money on me. Give it to a women's shelter or ADA foundation. Entitled Karen picks up and then drops my service dog on her face and gets arrested. Okay, so my service dog of 5 years recently passed on the 3rd of this year, and I remembered this story. I'm 14, and this story took place when I was 13. Our characters, we've got service dog, Dee Dee, we've got Karen, we've got me, and we've got GS, the GameStop lady. So I was in GameStop at the mall that I went to weekly because I had ice skating classes, and I had my service dog with me. She was a psychiatric service dog trained to avoid anxiety attacks that can lead to harm to myself and others, and to alert me to when I might pass out. She did not have a vest because it interfered with her work and my disability, and by ADA law, she doesn't need one in that case. But she did have a leash that read, Anxiety Service Dog, Do Not Pet. And I was looking around, and I also just wanted to pop in and say hi to an employee, GameStop lady, that I was pretty chill with. I was looking at a game from my Switch, I think Minecraft, and my dog was behind me for a task, basically to make more space for me to avoid an episode, since people being down my neck is a huge trigger for me, and I hear this lady, Karen,
Aw, cute puppy.
and she picks up my working service dog, me. Oh, can you please not pick her up? She's working and has to stay focused. I was cut off by Karen, who was still holding my dog.
It doesn't have a vest. It's fine.
Me, excuse me? By law, she doesn't need one if it interferes. I was cut off again, but this time I could feel like I was about to have a really bad episode. I felt like I was going to faint as my dog struggled to get to me and out of Karen's grasp. Then GameStop lady came to my rescue. GameStop lady, ma'am, please let go of Dee Dee. She's a working dog, and what you're doing is illegal by distracting a working service dog. She knows me and my dog by name because we're pretty okay friends. Karen,
No, this is my daughter's therapy dog.
who's her daughter? I don't know. She was there alone, no kids. Next thing I know, I was falling down and it went black for me, and this next part was told by the employee. She said that after I went out, Karen dropped my dog on her face. My dog was a small Chihuahua and Dachshund mixed, and Karen had to be 6 foot to 6'3". They said my dog just got up and rushed over to me and started tasking by licking my face and laying on my stomach to try to wake me up. But I didn't wake up for a while because it turns out I hit my head on a glass display case, and GameStop lady called 911 since I wasn't getting up. I woke up to mall security and cops around me as one cop was cuffing Karen. Later I found out that she was getting arrested for assault and attempted robbery, distracting a service dog or something like that. But my dog ended up being okay, and I ended up being okay in the end. I don't know very much on the legal stuff. I just didn't even want to bother with it. We just didn't have the time or money to really do anything about it. Please don't distract working service dogs. The handler of that dog is depending on that dog to do its job to keep them safe and or alive. When you distract a service dog, it cannot do its job and is putting both the dog and handler at risk. Please note that these aren't just dogs. They are medical equipment and are here not for your entertainment. They are here to do their jobs and be very cute and very good puppers while doing it. Aunt tries to take my computer parts and my cousin saved me. My friend and I were laughing about this and he convinced me to post it here. Some context. It was recently my 16th birthday and my parents thought I was old enough to build my own gaming computer. I carefully picked out parts and had them laid out on my desk. My cousin was looking to upgrade her computer. She's 13. So we've got entitled aunt, we've got dad, mom, amazing cousin, and me. My aunt has never shown behavior like this to us, but now I'm sure her daughter has to suffer through it all of the time. Anyways, so my aunt and my cousin were visiting, among a few other family and friends, for my birthday, and my cousin and I were at my desk in my room talking about the parts, and I was showing off all of the stuff I had very meticulously placed on my desk. We were in the middle of a conversation of how she wants to buy a new graphics card and some other components to make her build better when my aunt walks in. Entitled Aunt.
Hey, do you guys want anything to drink? Oh, hey, OP, are these your new computer doohickeys? Too technical for me, I'm sure.
Me. Yeah, these are all the things that I picked out.
So, what's this one?
Oh, that's a power supply. It's kind of like a battery pack.
Wow, OP, you kids are very smart to know all this stuff. Where's the screen?
Me. Oh, the monitor hasn't arrived yet. We just ordered it. Mom from the kitchen. Okay, everyone, dinner is ready, and we're cutting cake afterwards. I'm relieved to be pulled away from the awkwardness and head to dinner, but this is where the real trouble starts. Entitled Aunt.
So, I heard OP was building a new computer. How cool. Actually, Awesome Cousin is upgrading hers. Right, Awesome Cousin?
Cousin. Oh yeah, I want to upgrade the graphics card. Dad. Interesting. So, what are you looking for? NVIDIA or something else? Cousin. Mine is pretty old, so maybe something like an RTX card? I noticed OP has a 2060 Super. Something like that would be cool. Entitled Aunt.
Oh, wow. So, OP already has the one you want?
Cousin. Sure, Mom, but I don't...
Well, shipping times are slow because of what's going on. So what if Awesome Cousin could take your graphic cartridge, OP, and you could order another one? Your screen isn't even here. And what can you even do without a screen, you know? When it arrives, we'll pay you back for the cartridge too.
Dad. Well, see, OP really worked hard to pick out all of the parts, and there's no telling when other things will arrive. Entitled Aunt.
Well, it's the easiest option. Just think about it.
Later, after dinner and cake, we go back to start figuring out how to slap all the components together. Entitled Aunt walks in and starts asking for the graphics cartridge. She looks angry, but I still keep rejecting all her tries to take it. Eventually, my parents come in and try to get her to leave. Dad. Look, sis, if you want, we'll order one for you. Awesome Cousin's birthday is also in another month, and I wouldn't mind gifting her a new graphics card. He looks pointedly at my cousin. As long as it's not too expensive. Cousin. Thanks, Uncle. I don't mind waiting. I've saved money though. I could get it myself. Entitled Aunt.
No, no, no. I'm your older sister. I'm not leaving this house without that cartridge. You were always such a miser. You aren't even smart enough to see the sense in my argument. Cousin, come here. Which is it? We'll grab it and leave. Come on.
Then my mad lass of a cousin points at the box not for graphics card and instead to the box of the old computer mouse that I was going to throw out. Entitled Aunt angrily grabs it and storms out with Awesome Cousin in tow and gets in her car. They live in another state, and I'm sure that Awesome Cousin got heck from her mom the whole way home when she found out that the graphics cartridge was a computer mouse. We haven't heard from them for a day or two, but I called Awesome Cousin on their house's landline phone, and she said she did get chewed out, but she doesn't know what the punishment will be yet. I'm afraid that the money she's been saving will be taken away, but if this blows up and she calls back, then I'll add an update. Anyways, thanks for reading this far. Speaking of graphics cards, do you play any PC games? And if so, which ones? Please let us know.
Counter-Strike, bruh. Come get wrecked.
I kicked out by Karen's sister-in-law and her boyfriend. Long story short, I'm 23, female, and my sister-in-law, who's 20, and her boyfriend, 20, male, have come to live with us because they got kicked out of the boyfriend's parents' house and then my in-laws' house. My in-laws struggle with substances, and my husband is my sister-in-law's only sibling. We told them they could come stay with us as long as they got jobs and sister-in-law got her GED, and they cleaned up themselves. We don't charge them any rent, and they only supposed to kick in like $200 a month for groceries when they started working. We have 2 kids, and my husband is the only one working currently. They've been here since the end of October, and only one of them is working. Altogether, I'd say they've worked maybe 3 weeks, and they're on workplace number 4. It's been 3 months. They argue with us when we tell them to do things, complain that the Wi-Fi doesn't reach their bedroom, so it makes playing video games hard, refuse to pay for any of the groceries or household supplies they use. They have enough money to buy booze and vape pods, but not enough to pay for their car insurance, which led to them getting a court date when they got pulled over. Guess who got to pay for their car insurance? Us. This is literally wrecking my marriage because I'm so angry all of the time from these adult moochers living in my house. We've offered to pay for a deposit and first month's rent on an apartment for them, but they don't want that.
I've got to be able to keep a job for longer than a week first.
Direct quote from my sister-in-law. Not to mention, she's been talking about having a baby. We've tried nicely talking to them. I've tried being a tough guy and nothing is working. I'm done and I want them out. Would I be the jerk if I told them they can either pay for half of an apartment and we can pay for the other half by April 1st, or they can find somewhere else to go? Either way, they're getting the heck out of our house, even if it's to the streets. Edited to add, my husband's parents struggle with substances and are a mess. It was not out of the blue that something crazy would happen, and my sister-in-law and her boyfriend needed to get out ASAP. In fact, the straw that broke the camel's back was when my mother-in-law attacked sister-in-law and her boyfriend. I've never met the boyfriend's parents and had not met sister until they came out to live here. They live across the country, and for obvious reasons, my husband tries to keep his distance, so he wasn't really sure what was going on with his sister either. They're not addicts or bad people, just incredibly irresponsible, disrespectful, lazy, and entitled to other people's stuff. My husband's grandmother also really encouraged us to have them come stay with us because she thought they'd do well here. Not trying to argue with anyone, just fill in any holes into our logic of allowing them to come stay with us. Obviously, we thought they were capable of functioning in society, or we wouldn't have given the expectations we did. Job, GED, be responsible, and clean up your mess, etc. Hope that helps clear things up. Well, what do you think? Would OP be the jerk if they kicked out Karen and her boyfriend, or not? Please let us know.
I think OP will be the jerk if she lets them stay. Those in-laws sound insufferable.
You can't just give away coffee. I worked as a shift, night, manager at a local chain pizzeria for some time in my college years. I was hired by Owen, the franchise owner. My store GM was Jay, but he spent most of his time at our new store. There were 2 other managers, Amy, who was day shift manager, and Bill, who was not officially a manager, but worked on Amy and my days off as the shift manager. This store was probably the most crime-ridden place I've ever worked. They actually had a second drawer, just for in case you got robbed. My first solo night, my driver was hurt during a robbery while getting into his car. Sometime during my first month, the store both got robbed and was broken into. Now, we were only a few blocks from the county jail and the sheriff's office, state police post, EMS garage, and right across the street from a firehouse. But that didn't seem to discourage those looking for a quick buck. So shortly after the store getting robbed, I found an old urn-style coffee maker in storage and got an idea. The next day on my way to work, I stopped at the local service supply store, picked up some coffee cups with lids and a little dry erase board. Mind you, I didn't have purchasing abilities yet, just picked it up out of my own pocket. I got to work, set it all up, and wrote on the sign, Police, Fire, EMS, help yourself. The first couple days had no takers, but I did sell a couple cups for a few cents. It might have been a week when someone broke into one of the other businesses in the strip mall. Of course, the officers came in asking if we had seen anything, then helped themselves to a cup of coffee. From then on, we almost always had at least one officer either in the store or parked in the lot out front. And suddenly, we no longer had a bunch of crime at the store. Not only that, but they were coming in ordering food. Sales across the board shot up. It was a win-win in my book. Amy and Bill had both adopted the free coffee policy, and we all took turns restocking the coffee supply since Jay barely added anything extra to the automatic order as it was. Third month woes. We had a store meeting every month. I got in first, fired up the urn, and waited as Amy, Bill, and Jay trickled in for the meeting. Amy, Bill, and I all had a cup of coffee as Jay went through the usuals, and then laid into us on the coffee. Jay:
We're not giving away any more of my coffee.
Amy, Bill, and I looked at each other. We've been buying the coffee in cups. It's no loss to you, and sales are up. Jay:
We're not a coffee shop, and it costs me $1 for every cup. You can't give away $1 all the time.
Me, knowing full well it was closer to a dime per cup. Once again, you're not buying the coffee. Here's the receipt with my card on it. This went back and forth a couple rounds. Amy and Bill tapped out when Owen walked in. Owen wanted to start some type of club card program, like buy a card, then 5 pizzas, get a pizza for free. This is when it hit me. I'd combined club card and coffee. As soon as the meeting was over, I ran to the back quickly and designed a punch card. I put both punch cards and coffee into the point of sale system. From that day on, I sold 2 club cards. The first aforementioned pizza club, the other a coffee club. 12 coffees for $1. I also put up a Buy a Hero a Coffee Club cup, where customers could drop $1 in for the next fire, EMS, or police officer to get a card, and it was very popular. The best part was, being in the point of sale, coffee got automatically placed on the order. No need to ask Jay to approve something extra, and we could show Jay how much each cup actually cost. The heroes still got free coffee, along with a lot more customers. Jay went from thinking he was losing money on coffee to actually losing money on coffee. Owen didn't care because club cards were selling. We did so well, the rest of our stores had to start carrying coffee as well. Speaking of coffee, how do you like your coffee? Or do you not like coffee at all? Please let us know.
Caramel mocha coconut frappuccino for the win. Yes.
Told a Karen off while we were both waiting for our pizza. So yesterday, I, 20, male, had a friend, 16, male, over for supper. Don't worry, we were safe, and the lockdown isn't as bad here as other places, and we decided to get pizza from the pizza place downstairs of my apartment building. That restaurant is probably the only one in town that stays open on weekends, so being Sunday, they were in a rush. My friend and I sat at a table to wait until our pizzas were ready. No trouble so far. Well, they ended up forgetting our order, and we stayed there for over an hour waiting for our pepperoni and cheese before we realized something was probably wrong. No worries, things happen. They were rushed, and old boomers were giving them a hard time because of the wait. Me and my friend were talking about how, mostly in our region, boomers always complain about Generation Z being rude, but that oftentimes Gen Z are way more polite than boomers. Well, we got proven right. There was one lady in particular, in her late 60s probably, whose order was quite large and complicated, and she was waiting for the last part of her order. She was being rude and just awful to the staff.
I've been waiting for 15 minutes, and I still don't have my order.
We had been there for an hour, and we weren't whining.
That part of my order is done. Why aren't you giving it to me? You guys are slow. Why are you so slow? Are you understaffed or something? Is there no one back there making the pizza? It's not that hard to make a pizza. How come it's not in the oven already?
I looked at my friend, and he was like, "Don't do it." I said, "Hold me back, cause I'm about to tear this jerk a new one." She then asks one of the most experienced workers if she's new. That's when I lost it. Me. Excuse you, have you ever worked in a restaurant before? Karen, looking perplexed and shocked that I dared speak to her.
No.
Me. Then you can shut up. You can clearly see that this place is packed and that they're rushed. Karen.
Why don't you mind your own business?
Me. Because you're basically making it everyone's business. You're being verbally insulting toward hardworking employees who are doing their best, and you don't even know what it's like to be behind that counter, running like headless chickens to satisfy every demand of every old whining geezer like you. Take a chill pill, Karen. Karen.
Ha!
Trying to laugh it off because she got her feelings hurt, but still complains. Guy in the back of the restaurant. Oh, shut up, you jerk. The guy then started laughing at her and doesn't stop until she gets her order and leaves. We then laughed with the workers about the whole thing. Needless to say, they got a good tip from most people who witnessed this. We also got free cookies for the wait and for telling Karen off. Am I the jerk for calling my daughter petty for crying about not being mentioned in my award speech? In the area where I live, I've been part of a professional association for 30 years, ever since I was 26. Every year there is an event where a number of awards are given out. This year, the event was held over Zoom, and I was told that I had been nominated for the Lifetime Achievement Award. My daughter, 27, decided to get tickets. My ex-wife, 56, also bought tickets because my son, 16, wanted to be there. I was happy they decided to be there. I'm obviously on speaking terms with my ex-wife because of our minor son, and the more the merrier. My wife of a year, 30, and our son, 1, of course, were always going to be my guests, so they listened in. I honestly didn't expect to win and didn't want to jinx things by preparing a speech, but when the time came, they announced my name. I was ecstatic because this was the highest honor to be given. My wife and my son were hugging me, and she kissed me on the cheek. So I started off my speech with that I was sitting here tonight with my beautiful wife and my wonderful son. I said that I'd like to thank them for their support and owe everything I have and continue to do to them. After saying that, I didn't know how to add in anybody else, so I thanked the professional association and ended the speech. Yesterday, I was in therapy with my older kids and ex-wife, and my daughter was sullen the whole session and finally started railing against me for ignoring the 3 of them during my speech, and said that my ex-wife could have been just as successful as me in my profession given how many ideas she's given me in helping me to start my business, and that they were the ones dealing with my late nights and absences and being poor for many years. I explained to all 3 of them that I didn't know I would win, and that I was obviously going to acknowledge the people who were currently besides me, and my tongue tied. My daughter didn't seem to accept that explanation and continued crying. I finally told her that at this point, she's just being petty because of old grudges, and my son stood up and said, "Excuse us for being with you at the starting line." My ex-wife also started crying, and the therapy session ended there. Am I the jerk for thinking that 3 weeks is enough time to get over sour grapes over a simple speech? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. Jerk would be an understatement, to be honest. A wholesome experience. The backstory. I have a friend who owns a bar and grill in southern Wisconsin. At the time of this story, around 2007, he needed a new kitchen manager, so he asked me. I agreed because I love to cook and would be able to set the menu. In the time I worked there, I dealt with my share of entitled people. I also had a lot of great encounters with friendly people. This is one of those stories, my friends. Now, the way my buddy ran his bar and grill was to serve families till about 9 p.m., then switch over to being a bar/club. Basically, kids weren't allowed in after 9. The cast. We've got the girl. She was 7, going on 25, and so kind. We've got her overworked, extremely tired mother. We've got the assistant kitchen manager, and we've got my buddy and me. Now the story. It was about an hour before we switched from family-friendly to adults when the mother walked in with the cutest, sweetest girl I'd ever met. You could clearly see that mother was on her last leg. I later learned that she worked retail and had to deal with a gaggle of overzealous Karens as well as an overly flirtatious manager. She and her daughter were shown to a table and their order was taken. At some point, while waiting for their order, the girl had to go to the bathroom. She told her mom that she could go by herself and her mom agreed. I was busy in the kitchen, as usual, when the girl walked in, clearly not being able to actually find the bathroom. This is the conversation. Girl: "Excuse me, sir, where's the bathroom?" Me: "It's on the other side of the bar, sweetie. Would you like me to show you?" We weren't really all that busy in the kitchen, and my employees could handle things, so it wasn't an issue. She nodded, and I held out my hand to her. We made our way to the bathroom. Once she's safely inside, I returned to the kitchen. 5 minutes later, she's back. "Hi, mister. What you doing?" Me: "Hey, sweetie, I'm cooking food for customers." "Can I help? Mommy lets me." "Sorry, sweetie, but you're actually not supposed to be back here. Why don't I take you back to your table?" "Okay." Now here's where I learned how mischievous this girl was. She led me back to her table. "Mommy, I found a new daddy." Me: Her mother, under her breath: "Not again." To the daughter: "We talked about this. You can't keep trying to set me up with random strangers." To me: "I'm sorry. She does this all the time. Her father walked out on us when she was a baby." Me: "It's all right, miss. It'll be a great story someday." Her mother, laughing tiredly: "That's true." I returned to the kitchen and actually ended up taking them their food. We chatted for a bit while they ate, and I comped their meal. They came back at least once a week, and her mother and I ended up becoming great friends. She eventually found the girl a new dad who adopted her on her 16th birthday. Not me, I'm her adopted uncle. I was there for the event. Her daughter blushes every time we tell this story.
I was really hoping OP and the mother would have ended up together.
Me too, Karen. Me too. Am I the jerk for locking the gate to my yard? My new neighbors and I share a fence, which has a small gate connecting both yards. It's more a detachable piece of fence. The family who has lived there previously was good friends with my parents, who've also moved away some years ago. So having this gate was really just a nice thing to have. Since my parents moved, it went mainly unused and I never bothered getting rid of it. A few months ago, a family with 2 boys moved into the house. I was being friendly and told them about the yard access, figuring they wouldn't use it since we were just neighbors. Again, since lockdown, their boys had been spending time playing ball games in the yard, occasionally shooting one over the fence and entering without permission to get it back. And that's not even half of it. They've started playing their ball games over the fence, with one kid standing in my yard and the other kid in their own. I've also seen them petting my dog and playing hide and seek, giving them a warning every time and telling their parents that I do not want them in my yard. Granted, they don't break anything, they don't steal, they're not messing my garden up, and they're overall just really bored kids who want to expand their games. But it's my yard, and I get to decide who enters it. Anything else would be trespassing. They're not supervised, and I don't want them to get hurt on my property. I've told them this over and over and over again, and at last, I've decided to lock the gate with a lock. This really infuriated my neighbors, because now they can't access my yard, but I could technically access theirs. So they've demanded a spare key, telling me they'd hide it from the kids so they could let them retrieve the balls from my yard under their supervision. I flat out refused because they're obviously not able to keep an eye on their kids and would definitely give them the key without thinking twice about it. Am I the jerk? No, not at all, but your neighbors sure are.
You can say that again.
I just wanted to share my success story I had with my backyard neighbors recently. We have lived in our neighborhood for over a year now. We have backyard neighbors. Their backyard joins to ours with a fence dividing and some trees, but we're still close together, maybe 50 feet apart. They let their dogs out all the time, and this wasn't and is not the problem we have with them. They have a 9th grader who lives with his grandparents that work all day, so when he's home alone with the dogs, he likes to get a little laid back with collecting them when they bark on the chain. When the grandparents are home, the dogs don't bark for more than a minute, but this 9th grader will leave the dogs out for 20 minutes, sometimes an hour when he's home alone. We've never talked to them and never given them trouble. If the dog barks a lot, we just put up with it. I know my local laws, and I could call and report the barking, but I don't want to start problems with my neighbors like that, and I love dogs. But this lazy kid will sit there at his back door and yell for the dogs to come for 5 to 10 minutes, and the dogs don't give a straight crap about him. So he just stands there and yells some more until he goes inside and lets them bark for a little longer. Eventually, he gets them to come. He's louder than the dogs barking when he bellows for them. Well, the other day, I finally was fed up with his screaming at the dogs, so while he was mid-scream, I opened my window and shouted, "Hey!" very short and fast. Closed my window, and that was that. Since then, the dogs have not been out and barking for more than a couple minutes, and when he wants them to come in, he actually gets his shoes on and walks over to them and grabs them. Blown away. I'm assuming he knows if his grandparents knew he was being lazy, they wouldn't be too pleased with him. And if any of them decide to lay into me about snapping at that 9th grader, I'll tell them, "Oh, he doesn't like being barked at? Imagine how we felt for the last year living behind you." Scout! Scout! Come! Come! Scout! The 9th grade neighbor every day, multiple times a day. Am I the jerk for telling my friend that she has no right getting mad that her Netflix account got canceled? So my friend is a heavy Netflix user. She was in the middle of a show when her account got canceled. However, she uses her friend's Netflix account, and I believe this friend was okay with them using it. However, today I was told that when she tried to log in, she received an incorrect password notification. And when a Netflix account gets canceled, the error says something along the lines of, "Would you like to renew?" She says she is upset at both, 1, being lied to, as the Netflix owning friend lied about canceling the account when really she changed the password, and 2, being mid-show when the password was changed. I can kind of understand the part about being lied to, but not the mid-show part. She and I agreed that it would be more mature for the Netflix-owning friend to just tell her and her family that they don't want them on the account anymore, but I understand why they lied, to be honest. However, I feel like she has no right about the fact that she no longer has access to the account. It's not hers, and she's not too close with the people who own the account. For example, if I give you my phone charger and I want it back, even though my phone is at 80%, then it's my right to get my charger back. It would be whack and odd of me to ask, but in the end, it's my property. She then kind of went on about how she doesn't want to hear about what's morally right and just wants to vent to process emotions. I get venting and wanting to express emotions, but in all honesty, I personally think that this isn't something that is valid to vent about. I don't know. Am I just an insensitive jerk? Edit. Thanks to all who have responded. I felt bad when she said she just wanted to vent, but even then I was like, come on man, this is not the right thing to be upset at. Well, what do you think? Does Karen have a right to be upset or not? Please let us know.
Here's an idea, Karen. Get your own Netflix account.
Fiancé left me due to my health condition. I left her destitute. We dated for 4 years and had what I thought was a great relationship. We were both well-established professionals who both owned homes in the same neighborhood and both with daughters in the home. Her daughter was 11 and mine was 16 when we met. We had actually planned to get married, build a house, and raise the two together. We planned the house build because she had recently been diagnosed with a neurological disease that would eventually put her in a wheelchair and need something ADA friendly. During the planning stages, I began doing landscape and construction projects on her home to increase the resale value. All in, I invested roughly $30,000 into the home, running everything through my side construction business for tax, permitting, and resale purposes. We had a contract that payment would be made upon the sale of the home. I produced invoices for each and every project, but never pushed for payment because of the prior agreement. Fast forward 6 months, we're looking at property to develop and finalizing drawings on the home when I began feeling ill. I couldn't eat, constantly vomiting and passing blood. I began noticing that my abdomen looked swollen, which was odd because we were both very clean eaters and were in the gym every day. So I went to the doctor and began having tests done. During this time, she began having small cognitive issues, and the stress of her current position was exacerbating her condition. So she took a $20,000 per annum cut in pay along with a lesser position inside the company. After a month or so of different tests and a biopsy, it came back that I had a golf ball-sized tumor in my stomach and would need to begin chemotherapy. So I began chemo and radiation treatments, which made me, expectedly so, extremely ill. She was spending time helping around my place on the weekends and staying over more, to the point that they were both at my home more than theirs. At this point, I suggested that we go ahead and put one of our houses on the market and move in together until the new house was built. I have great supplemental insurance as well as a long-term illness plan, so using that coupled with the sale of one of our houses would push us through comfortably and help ease the financial stress on her. Shortly after this discussion, she became extremely distant. Her daughter wasn't coming down and hanging out with mine anymore. She had excuses for not getting together. She quit driving me to treatments and stopped staying over. She then dropped a bomb, a sentence that will forever be burned into my psyche. I love you, but I can't see myself taking care of someone this sick in the long term, and I don't think we should see each other any longer. In a text. It broke me, I won't lie. This was the first woman I had ever opened up to and planned a life with since my wife died when my kids were 1 and 3. However, I tried to be mature about it. I forced myself to understand her position and to accept what I could not change. I calmly, the next day, gathered all of her things, packed them neatly, loaded them into my truck, and took them to her house to leave on the back porch while she was at work, in order to avoid any awkward exchanges. Walking around the back and under the porch cover, I sat down in a box and saw her in the back living room, on the couch, hooking up with a guy that she had introduced me to as a lifelong friend. I had dinner and drinks with this man and his girlfriend. We had gone on vacation with them as well. I never spoke on the incident with her and simply sent her a text later explaining that I would leave her things on my side porch to pick up at her convenience. I discovered 8 or 9 months later from his now ex-girlfriend that they had broken up due to him confessing that he had been hooking up with my significant other dating back to about the time we were finishing drawings on the new home. Now I'm mad. Revenge time. At this point, I had finished chemo and radiation for the time being and was feeling healthier. I was going through some much neglected paperwork when I ran across the file that contained $32,000 in unpaid, long overdue invoices, which were promptly sent to my attorney to begin lien proceedings on the home. It turns out that I couldn't have done this a moment too soon because she was set to put her house on the market. Coupled with interest over the course of what was then 19 months overdue, the invoices were hefty. That, along with the agreement of settling them when the house was sold and attorney fees, left her with roughly $10,000 after the sale of the home and settling her current mortgage. She promptly had to back out of the purchase of another home and moved in with her oldest daughter, sister-in-law, and 2 grandkids. She also had to leave her home and begin receiving disability. I ran into her a little over a year ago, and she looked as if she had aged 20 years and was in the wheelchair we had talked about. We chatted cordially, but briefly, and I excused myself and went on with my day. A few days later, her younger daughter called me and spoke of my running into her mom and could we hang out sometime. I gave her a vague answer, thanked her for calling, and again went on with my day. The ex then called me a week or so later and began apologizing for leaving me as she did. Again, cordial but short. I thanked her for calling and hung up. She began texting, and this went on for several weeks until she asked if I could ever see us rekindling what we had, to which I replied, "I can't see myself taking care of someone so sick in the long term. Remember the box on your back porch? Did you think that lifelong friend brought that over to you from my house? Good luck to you. Goodbye." I sometimes feel guilt over this, but not much and not often. Entitled Mom yells at me because I won't change the price of a toy. So this happened a while ago, but it still makes me fume every time I think about it. So I'm a supervisor at a supermarket. One day a cashier calls for me to come and help with something. I get over there and it's a mom and her kid. The mom claims the toy she has in her hands was only $9. Now, we're supposed to be strict about this kind of stuff because most of the time an item has just been moved to the wrong place. Just so we're clear, we can't honor a price every time something is in the wrong place. It's a huge store, and we would be run out of business doing that. Anyway, back to the story. I go with the customer to the toy section so she can show me where she found it. I see that the toy was clearly in the wrong spot, and all 3 other toys like this are an aisle away, and they're ringing up $20. I tell the customer this, and then a crap storm occurs. We've got me, we've got Entitled Mom, and we've got her kid. Entitled Mom.
Okay, but I found it here, and you guys say you honor the prices.
Me. Not if the item has been moved to another place. If all the other toys like this were in the spot, there might be an exception. But if you read the label here, it says something different than the toy you're talking about.
That's not my problem. I found it here. My son really wants it, and you are going to deny it to him? I used to work here. I know how things work, and you have to give it to me for that price.
Me. Ma'am, I'm sorry, but there is too much of a difference for me to change the price of an item that was in the wrong spot. Her kid. At this point, he's not even caring about the toy. He's playing with a phone and seems perfectly content. Entitled Mom.
Are you kidding me? You're going to do that to my kid? He's so upset over this. He's throwing a fit. You tell him that you're the reason why he can't have a toy he wants so bad. Tell him.
Her kid begins to get upset because she is baiting him. Me, trying to calm her down. Ma'am. Entitled Mom talking to her son.
I'm sorry you can't have it. This woman over here won't let you have it.
At this point, she's being so loud that my nearby coworkers have come over to see if everything is okay. I tell the customer I will get her a manager because I'm starting to get so angry that I'm shaking. The manager meets her up front where she continues to yell at him in front of all the cashiers and customers checking out. She's going on about how we are cheating her and that I handled the situation very poorly. Then she asks to speak to the store manager. When she is told that the store manager is unavailable, she calls our corporate number. Oh, and to make things worse, management let her have the toy. She was definitely one of the worst customers I've had to endure. Now, every time I see her, I shudder to think of having to help her again. By the way, it wasn't so bad after because all the cashiers were cracking up about the craziness of this lady, in turn making all the anger go away. And this mother met with the store manager, but everyone else vouched for me about how crazy this lady was, so I didn't get in any trouble. I kicked Karen out of my car and told her to never call me for a ride again. A little backstory. I, 24, male, Have a car rock. It used to be my grandfather's, and he would always have it in his car as a lucky totem, and had it for about 30 years according to my mom. But he passed away when I was around 5. I don't have much to remember him besides a few pictures of us, his ring, a knife, and this rock. When I turned 18, my mom gave me the knife, ring, and rock because my grandfather wanted me to receive these on my 18th birthday. I keep his knife in my room, wear the ring every day, and in the past 6 years, I've kept that rock in my car too, and kept it as a lucky totem as well. Sometimes when I drive, I'll have the rock in my hand and just rub my thumb over it, and it kind of gives me peace of mind. I don't really know how to explain it in words, I guess. So onto the story. This happened last night. My friend Jane, 26, female, her car is currently in the shop for repairs after an accident. She got rear-ended and it messed up her whole back end. So the past week, she's been either Ubering or asking friends to pick her up when her shift is done, and that's around 7:30 p.m. Her work is about 30 minutes away from me, and she lives about 10 minutes from me. So last night, she called me at 7 p.m. and asked me if I could pick her up, and so I said sure, no big deal. So I pick her up and everything was fine until I picked up my rock and started rubbing it. Jane asked what was in my hand. I showed it to her and said, "This is my lucky rock. I sometimes rub it whenever I drive." She asked to hold it and I gave it to her. She told me that the rock was stupid, and before I could say anything back, she threw it out of the window. I screamed, "What the heck did you do that for?" Jane said, "Rocks are stupid and lucky items don't work." At this point, I'm probably 5 minutes away from her house, so I pulled over in a grocery store lot and asked her to get out. Jane asked why I was making a big deal about it, so I told her the meaning behind the rock. And finally I said, "Until you find that rock and give it back to me, never call me for a ride, and you're never allowed into my car again." She ended up getting out of my car, and I drove to the vicinity of where she threw it at, and I spent about 2 hours trying to find it. During those 2 hours, friends from our group called me asking what happened, and I explained my side. Most of the group knew the significance of the rock because I've given them rides before, and they asked about it. Those ones are on my side, but the last few are calling me the jerk because I left a woman alone to walk home in the dark. I do feel guilty for kicking her out, and I feel like I could have handled the situation better. So Reddit, am I the jerk for kicking my friend out of my car and banning her from entering my car over a rock? Edit. I will update if I do or don't find the rock. Edit 2. Thank you everyone for the kind words, it really means a lot. I haven't found it yet, but I'm getting a group together to help me search for it Friday. A few people have asked for updates, so I'll probably give a more detailed one on Saturday or Sunday. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Karen? Please let us know.
I would have thrown her out of the window, to be honest.
If you don't do the senior project, then you won't walk during graduation. Well, okay. Back in 2013, I was a senior at a high school I had just transferred to. I had moved earlier in the year because my parents got divorced, and I made the deliberate choice to leave my old high school and move in with my dad, attending a new high school. I won't go into much detail about the why, but it was my decision to leave my mom, my old school, and my hometown in the Bay Area, and move into a small apartment with my dad. This comes up later. Normally, switching schools isn't a huge deal, but it was sort of an abrupt move. I wasn't able to take any of the AP classes I normally would have taken because they all had mandatory summer projects that I wouldn't have been able to do in a week. Additionally, a week into the school year, we were told about this stupid senior project they wanted us to do. In a nutshell, there was some acronym like IMPACT or something, and each letter represented a value of the school. They wanted us to write about how IMPACT had influenced us in our time at the school. We were then told that, should we not do the senior project, we wouldn't be able to walk for graduation. I heard this and thought it was stupid for a number of reasons, not the least of which being that I had only just gotten there, so their dumb acronym didn't mean anything to me. I brought this concern up to the lady telling us about the project, and her response was that I just figure something out or don't walk. Well, okay then. I brought it up with my dad, asked if he gave a hot hoot whether or not I walked for a high school graduation. He did not. So I just figured that I wouldn't do the project. End of story, right? Wrong. You see, a few months into the senior project, they did a checkup on every senior. We just lined up in our homeroom to talk to some lady from the principal's office and told her how close we were to being done. When I walked up, I told her that I wasn't doing it. She was confused.
You're not doing it? You have to. It's non-negotiable.
No, it's not. I don't have to do it.
But you won't walk if you don't do it.
Yeah? Then we just sort of stared at each other, and she wrote my name down and shooed me away. I correctly assumed that this would not be the last interaction I had regarding this non-issue. Several weeks later, my suspicions were confirmed when I was pulled out of class and brought into the main office. They ushered me into the vice principal's personal office, where she made a bit of a show of pulling out some papers. She told me that the meeting was regarding a misunderstanding I may have had regarding the senior project. She was apparently told that I didn't know what to do for the assignment, and I chose to boycott the whole thing as a result. I quickly corrected her and explained that I very clearly understood what they wanted me to do, but that I thought it was stupid and wasn't going to do it. I also explained that I understood the penalty and was fine with it. She, like the First Lady, seemed confused by this course of action and just let me leave, since there wasn't really much of a conversation to be had. A few more weeks later, I get pulled out of yet another class for the same thing. Again, I'm brought up to the vice principal for a one-on-one. When I get there, she looks like the cat that ate the canary. She begins.
So, I know you were in here a while ago, and you said that you didn't want to do your senior project.
No, I interrupted. I said I wasn't doing the project.
Well, she continued, we had a chat with your mother over the phone earlier this week. She told us that she really wants you to walk on your graduation.
I was quiet for a moment. I live with my dad.
Right, but your mom said she'd like to attend the ceremony and see you walk.
I don't think you get it, I stated. I live with my dad for a reason. If ever there were an expression that perfectly exemplified the dial-up tone, that's the face she made. After she collected herself, I was released and headed back to class. By this point, I was mostly just not doing the project because it was dumb, but them calling a family member to strong-arm me was crossing a line. On top of that, they tried to strong-arm me using a parent with whom I was no contact. I decided right then that no matter what, I wasn't caving into their BS. Forget the project, forget the school, forget the weird tactics they were trying to use. Though in my anger was also confusion. Why the heck did these people care so much about one guy not doing an optional assignment? Also, I made myself very clear. So, was that the end of it? Spoiler, it wasn't. A few more weeks later, I got pulled into the actual principal's office. The principal, for reference, was one of those guys that tried to make a show of being overly friendly and goofy, but to the point where it came off as superficial. When I got to his office, he was his usual extroverted self, greeted me and sat me down. So, I've heard about this whole senior project problem you've had going on, and I get it. Trust me, I really do. You're new here, so our motto hasn't had as much of an impression. So, after talking about it with the folks grading the projects, we think it'd be just fine if you had a modified project. Just do a project on one letter of impact, and you're golden. He gave me a big warm smile. No. Sorry? He asked, still smiling. I'm not doing it. His smile was slowly fading. But you only have to do one letter. It's really not that much. Yeah, I got that. I'm still not going to do it, I stated. But you won't be able to walk on graduation day. Yep. So what's the issue exactly? You called my mom? His mouth was open like he was going to say something, but I guess nothing came to mind, as we sat in silence for a good 20 seconds. Him trying to formulate an argument, and me making a Jim Halpert face. I told him if that was everything he needed to talk about, I would be heading back to class. He didn't protest, so I just left. It was after this meeting that I eventually got some context. Apparently, California schools will shuffle principals around every few years for some reason that probably makes sense, but I don't care enough to research. Our principal was going to be switching schools after the 2013 semester had ended, and one of his big plans was to leave that high school with 100% participation in the senior projects that would otherwise not affect any final grade. He used the threat of preventing students from walking at graduation to bully everyone into doing the dumb project. Almost everyone. I stuck to my plan and refused to do it. And sure enough, after the deadline had passed, they made a big deal about how happy they were that 99.6% of students completed their senior projects, even though they were hoping for 100%. And the absolute dumbest part about this exercise is stupid. After everything was said and done, I was called in one last time to the VP's office. She told me that despite my refusal to do the senior project, they were still going to let me walk and gave me 5 tickets for friends and family. I laughed, walked out without the tickets, and didn't attend my own graduation. Have you ever been forced to do a stupid school project you didn't want to do? If so, what was it? Please let us know.
Ugh, I can just smell the Elmer's glue and poster boards.
Am I the jerk for not giving my sister, a single mom, money for a car when I can afford to do so? I, 17 female, have an online shop that I've been running for about 2 years now. It sells mostly stickers with my custom art, as well as some other small items. I put a lot of work into it. Basically, if I'm not doing school stuff, I'm working on stuff for my shop. I love it. The lockdown has let me put in even more time over the past 10 months. It's really done well. I have a good chunk of money saved for university and other things. My sister, 25 female, is divorced with 2 kids, a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old. She has a job and child support. We've never gotten along. She always acted like she was embarrassed by me. She said I'm an antisocial nerd loser, which is fair. One of the things she always made fun of was my sticker hobby. She said stickers were juvenile, and I'm just creating more garbage in the world. She totaled her car recently and can't afford a new one. My parents told her to ask me for a loan. They can't afford to help her. And she sort of scoffed and asked them how much a loser like me could have. I don't even work. They told her how much I have in my bank account, and she called me demanding I buy her a new car. Not asking, demanding. She said I don't need the money, that I could get student loans like she did, and that I was a bad sister for not offering to help her out or pay her when I knew how tough she had it. She eats at restaurants all the time, buys expensive clothes and shoes and bags, makeup palettes, trips to the spa with her friends before lockdown. I had no idea she had it tough, but in fairness, even if I had, I probably wouldn't have given her money. At no point in this conversation did she mention paying me back. She said that I've never contributed anything to the family, which is a joke coming from her, and that further to buying her a new car, I should give her what I make from my dumb hobby, since as a single mom, she needs the money much more than I do, as I live rent-free at home and don't contribute to bills or groceries. The thing is, she's not wrong, but I don't want to give her a cent. She's my sister and I love her, but I don't like her very much. She's selfish and entitled, and it bugs me she just makes these demands like I'm the one being unreasonable. So I said heck no, and that she probably is too good for my baby sticker money anyway. I wouldn't want her to stoop to my level. Then I hung up and stopped responding to her texts, calls, and DMs. My parents won't force me to do anything. They say it's up to me, but that I should reconsider. She's my sister and is having a hard time, and there are 2 babies involved. They need a car. I don't strictly need the money right away like she does, and I was pretty snarky with her. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Edit. I just want to say thank you to everyone that responded. I didn't expect so much support, and I'm truly touched. I was freaked out at all the comments coming in, but you're all so nice. I've been reading everything. Sorry for not responding to everyone. I had a lot of conflicting emotions. I know my sister was being a jerk, but factors like her kids, quasi-recent divorce, and just the fact that she can be really convincing had me questioning myself. I'm sorry if this post came off as validation seeking. I can see how it would. I thought helping her might be the right thing to do, since I would if she were nicer to me, and I didn't want to be petty. But there were a lot of great comments that pointed out stuff I hadn't thought about or was just plain ignorant on, and now I feel a lot better about not giving her the money. So thank you again, and thank you for the sticker love too. Well, what do you think? Should OP give her sister the money or not? Please let us know.
Absolutely not. Those who enable Karens are just as bad as the Karens themselves.
Entitled Dad. $1,500 to help out with a major debt of mine or holding on to a baby album out of sheer spite? I'll go with the spite. Backstory. Entitled Dad meets the whole checklist when it comes to malignant narcissism. He can do no wrong, no matter what. Everyone else is always wrong. Whatever. Has to have the newest, the best, nothing else is acceptable. To that end, he bought a brand new 7-seater car 5 years ago. Treated that car better than me, honestly. I was the unfavorite of the family. Even though I tried my best to be useful, nothing was ever good enough. My younger half-siblings, the household help, and my stepmother were allowed to treat me however they wanted. I had moved to his country to get to know that side of my heritage, but when it got too bad, I noped out and went straight back to my mom's country. And backstory. Life has done him a bad turn. Good. Especially after I left 3 years ago. He hasn't worked consistently, bills are piling up, and he even had a stroke, which I had to find out via telephone relay basically. As a result, he is in arrears of $6,000 and is struggling to pay it since he cannot work. He also owes property taxes. My sister's school fees are in arrears. He can't afford medication or rehab. Now, despite all of this, I spoke with my aunt, and she told me that despite him being a jerk, she felt a little sorry for him. I don't like him either, but I said I would give him $1,500. Give, not loan, provided that he can give me the baby album I mistakenly left behind. Free money, basically, to someone I am estranged from, just for a small thing. He keeps asking her if I sent the money yet. I hadn't. Then he starts saying to her that he will send me the digitized pictures because the album is not her property. He went on about how I was blackmailing him and he's not going to stand for it. That I hate him because I won't just send the money. I don't listen. I wasn't mistreated. I just made it look that way. But who am I to be believed anyway? Imagine being able to get out of debt a bit by just sending a worthless, money-wise, album. Anyone smart would take the quiet shame of the help, as opposed to the very public shame of having your car towed when everyone in your uppity neighborhood is there to see, of having your name published in the debtors page of the newspaper. But I guess spite is keeping him alive, not the medication he can't afford to buy. He says that he's not going to stand for me blackmailing him. Fine. He can stand for the bus then when the repo people come for that stupid car. I'm done. Entitled Mom Makes Me Miss My Flight. This happened a few years ago, and I had like a vivid flashback of it while walking home the other day. I, female 26, moved to New York City when I was 18, but visited home quite often to see my little brother. My parents are divorced. I'd always ask my dad to drive me and pick me up from the airport. It's about a 45-minute drive. I almost always take the cheapest flights, which are usually red-eyes. So I've always readily appreciated it and made it clear with verbal thanks and small gifts for my dad. He's always just glad to see me, to be honest, and we always sort of cry and hug at the drop-off gate. My mom noticed this about 2 years in and started to get super huffy.
Why don't you ever ask me to take you to the airport? I don't understand why you'd want to spend 45 minutes in the car with him.
Stuff like that. But I knew if I did, she'd make a huge deal out of it. Plus, she's super unreliable. Years pass and I have an afternoon flight back to New York City. I finally agreed to let my mother drive me to the airport. My dad had to work anyways, so it should be fine, right? Wrong. First, my mother demands my little brother come as well, so she doesn't have to drive back home. He doesn't mind and would have come anyways, but still, the energy is already bad. Then she decides we're going to go to the only restaurant in like 3 counties that serves pho. Okay, great. I don't mind and it's near the airport. But I expressed many times that we'd need to leave early to do lunch and make my flight. The day of, she's an hour late to grab my brother and I. I expressed that we probably won't have time to make my flight and have lunch, and that she and my brother should grab it after dropping me off. She's furious, rolls her eyes, calls me a nervous Nelly, demands I go to lunch. The place is packed busy. They tell us at the door the food will take a while. I ask the lady if they can place an order and pick it up in 30 minutes, but my mom marches off to a dirty table and sits down, gesturing that the poor hostess clean it up. My brother and I are mortified, but the lady told us it's okay and that we should go and sit. Boarding starts in 15. I show my mom my boarding pass and the text alert that my flight is there. I pull up the Uber app to see if Uber even exists in this rural area. It doesn't. My little brother is trying his best to encourage that we leave, but she refuses. The whole restaurant watches as my mom yells at me and dresses me down, screaming about how I'm ungrateful, how I'm lucky that she even offered to drive me and pay for my food. She gets more and more worked up as I just stop responding, how I'll end up alone and never have kids. Then she starts talking about confidential medical information that to this day, I do not know how she found out. I tried to de-escalate so many times, but she had decided to be everyone's problem. At this point, I could tell I was going to miss my flight. I didn't have the energy to care, and I was reeling from the hateful things she was saying. I stepped out to call the airline and change my flight. Our waitress stepped out after and let me know they were rushing our order. The whole staff was really kind, considering how terrible it all was. When I came back in, my brother was basically slumped down in his chair and my mom was on her phone telling my uncle about how ungrateful I was. The food was there, but obviously I didn't want to eat. The waitress grabbed the check right away and left it at the table with to-go containers, but my mom got really mad at that even. She was like,
"Don't try and accommodate this ugly girl. Look, she won't even eat your food. She thinks she's too good for it."
And then she ordered more food. She asked for them to pack up 4 extra servings so she could take it home to my stepdad and sister's family. We sat there as she ate, my sweet baby brother Snapchatting me under the table trying to cheer me up. By the time the food for my step-family arrived, my flight had already departed. She went up to pay, and I left a $40 tip on the table for our server. She stayed on the phone the entire rest of the way, and while my brother helped me grab my bag, she rolled down the window and yelled at him to hurry up. He asked if he could walk me to security, but my mom just sneered and said,
"She's already missed her flight. We need to hurry home and take this food to everyone."
I just gave him a big hug and told him not to worry. I got the next flight, tried my best not to cry while waiting. Anyways, it took a while, but we're no contact now. Looking back, it's such an insane thing to do, but at the time, I really did doubt myself. Am I the jerk for not considering my brother-in-law, my former school bully, family? I, 31 female, currently have a sister-in-law, 31 female, who isn't speaking to me or any other members of my family because she's angry that I do not consider her husband, 31 male, family. Background: future brother-in-law and I started school together in 6th grade. He and his best friend bullied me and my friends relentlessly. During that year, I had the misfortune of having every class with them, so it was a constant occurrence. I would go home and cry most days, and going to school was misery. During high school, I only had one class with brother-in-law, so we had almost no contact and never spoke to each other those 4 years, and I thought after graduation I would never see him again. Oh, how wrong I was. Long story short, after high school I met my husband, now 30 male, who is bully/brother-in-law's younger brother. We started dating and got engaged young. Brother-in-law freaked out, told husband he could do better than me, that he was ruining his life by marrying me, that he was going to end up divorced, etc. Fast forward 9 to 10 years. Husband and I have master's degrees, are happily married, 2 kids, etc. After almost zero contact during the college years as we were in different states, brother-in-law and his wife moved to our city while he is doing his medical residency. Not only that, they move in across the street because they like our type of house better than any of the other ones they look at. So family dinners with my parents-in-law and them became a regular thing. They end up having a kid, so now we do cousin get-togethers, etc. Brother-in-law and I rarely ever directly speak to each other. We mostly just inhabit the same space and are cordial. No one ever brings up the past. After a disagreement with brother-in-law's wife a couple months ago, she blew up and said it's like I don't even consider my brother-in-law family and thought I had gotten over my dislike of him. I told her I absolutely do not consider him family, and that's never been a secret. She hasn't spoken to me since and is causing contention with the parents-in-law who want us to be one big happy family. Pretty much everyone thinks that the bullying was a long time ago and I need to get over it, especially because he's family. I contend that I don't need to, and that being cordial to him is fine and the best it's going to get. Am I the jerk for still holding a grudge and not considering brother-in-law family? Edit. Brother-in-law has never apologized for or addressed his bullying of me. Edit. Was not expecting such a response. Thanks to those that replied, even the ones where I was the jerk for marrying into the family. Shout out to the many others here who stated that they were victims of bullying. Hope you are doing better now. Hold me back 1 year in high school over a single gym credit? How about I go to college a year early instead? I hated gym class. Not because of the physical activity, I was in hockey and football, but the fact that there wasn't enough time to shower before the bell, so you stink to high heaven for the rest of the day. So I would walk the track with all the girls. Really upset the coaches. So they flunk me in my junior year and won't let me double up my senior year, so I would have to stay back. I had already picked out my college and was accepted, tech school. Just had to finish my senior year. So I figured I could work out something with the guidance counselor and the coach. Nope, neither would budge. Okay, I walk away thinking I'm done for and have to basically take one class my second senior year. Then it dawns on me. Can I just start going to college now? Are there other alternatives? So I call my college admissions and college guidance counselor. explain my situation and what other options are available. Since this is a non-traditional college, no SATs, you can start without a diploma. The caveat is you must have one or equivalent to get your diploma. The state I'm from, they don't distinguish between the two, so it won't be an issue later on. So I called another meeting, hoping the high school admin would change their minds. No joy. They stuck to their guns. Thinking they had me cornered, I stood up and said, "Well, I'm just going to have to drop out then. I can't see missing a year of college to just do a gym class." The coach thinks he's all cute and says, "You can't go to college without a diploma." I relay what the tech school admin/guidance told me of their policy on this. Faces dropped. It said into the guidance counselor that a dropout looks bad on her and the school. Small school. When the state audits, she starts backpedaling and I wasn't hearing any of it. Later on that night, the principal and vice principal called to talk. I wasn't interested. I was all excited about starting classes in the fall. Tech college would let me start classes as long as I got my GED prior to graduation. So I quit high school, looks bad on the school admin, and got my degree a year earlier. Entitled Bridezilla gets kicked out the day before her wedding. A few notes before I begin the story. This occurred almost a year ago near the beginning of lockdown at a large resort hotel/casino with many amenities and services, including multiple wedding chapels. My mom has worked there since it opened, and this story happened to her. As many hotels do nowadays, the property has a service where you can text your questions and employees in many departments can see them and respond accordingly. We've got Mom and Entitled Bridezilla. My mom is answering some text service questions, and so begins the saga of the Bridezilla, who apparently thought everyone should be doing absolutely everything for her. Karen.
Hi, how can I make spa and salon appointments for myself and my fiancé?
Mom. I'm sorry, but the spa and salon are closed due to lockdown.
Okay, I am in need of a bridal veil, as I am getting married here this week. Where can I find one?
Mom. There are 2 large shopping malls nearby, one just to the south of the hotel and one further away to the north.
Okay, go ahead and tell one of your maids to get one and deliver it to me.
Mom. I'm sorry, the hotel does not provide that service, nor will they pay for your veil.
Honestly, this hotel has already ruined my whole wedding experience as a bride, and as a frequent visitor to this city, I definitely will not be recommending this hotel to anyone.
Wall of text and caps locks, etc., etc.
Now, stop texting me.
Mom, of course, has no problem not talking to this lady anymore and decides to do some investigating and looks at her reservation. It's flagged and full of notes about how Karen has been terrorizing everyone she's come in contact with and nothing has been going good enough for her. From the size and price of her room, a mid-tier suite that was just remodeled the year before, and the rooms of her bridal party, to the fact that she still has to pay for her meals and drinks. Karen is basically a walking dumpster fire tornado. It doesn't take more than a few days before Mom catches wind of an altercation in the VIP lounge. The day before her wedding, Entitled Bride had to provide ID for some additional guests who were arriving under her name. Of course, she didn't like that, as she felt every single employee on property should know who she is as a VIP. There are vastly different levels of VIP. This is a casino after all. And how dare they ask her for ID? She started throwing a tantrum about how crappy the hotel was being, and that even today she had already demanded that they redecorate the chapel again because it was nothing like she wanted. She picked the decorations from their catalog herself. She attempted to go around the desk and attack the VIP clerk. Security escorted her off the property and evicted her from the motel. Mom never heard anything about what happened with the rest of her party or whether or not she got married there after all. Leavey me alone, lady. I don't work here. The cast. We've got me, avid Pokémon enthusiast. We've got the store employee, and we've got Team Rocket Karen, the entitled parent, and Snuggles, the Eevee plushie. The story. So I, 33 male, am a huge lover of Pokémon, had just gotten paid, and decided I wanted to buy myself a Valentine's gift. I went to my local chain video game store, let's call it Video Game Go, because they have all kinds of collectibles. Having been there several times, I had seen a 24-inch Eevee plushie that I really liked. Perfect. Eevee is one of my favorite Pokémon, and this particular plushie could also be used for cosplay. Having grabbed my plushie and paid for it, and the bag that would give me a $5 discount on any collectibles that would fit inside it, I decided to look around for anything I might want to get on my next visit. I decided to look around for anything I might want to get on my next visit. I decided to look around for anything I might want to get on my next visit. I decided to look around for anything I might want to get on my next visit. I decided to look around for anything I might want to get on my next visit. I decided to look around for anything I might want to get on my next visit. I decided to look around for anything I might want to get on my next visit. I decided to look around for anything I might want to get on my next visit. I decided to look around for anything I might want to get on my next visit. I decided to look around for anything I might want to get on my next visit. I decided to look around for anything I might want to get on my next visit. I decided to look around for anything I might want to get on my next visit. I decided to look around for anything I might want to get on my next visit. I decided to look around for anything I might want to get on my next visit Now, as it is rather cold here in Texas, I was bundled up in several layers, including rather warm, comfy sweatpants, a rather large ski jacket, a stocking hat, scarf, and had my backpack on, with Snuggles the Eevee and her exclusive Corgi Eating Noodles collectible bag. The employees of this particular video game chain store generally wear jeans, a t-shirt with the store logo or something similar, and a lanyard with a badge showing their name and the company logo on it. So there is no way I could possibly be confused as an employee. Enter Team Rocket Karen. Cue Team Rocket encounter music. Team Rocket Karen wants to battle. Snuggles the Eevee, I choose you. Karen, she had the typical Karen haircut and a look that screamed, "Where's your manager?" Excuse me, do you guys have... Enter game title here. Team Rocket Karen used confusion. It's super effective. Me. What? Team Rocket Karen used clap. Do you have... Enter video game title here. God, some people are so slow. Me. Snuggles the Eevee is confused. It hurt itself in confusion. What? Karen uses snap attack. Karen snapping her fingers. I want... Enter video game title here. I'm going to buy it for my son. Me. Snuggles the Eevee is still confused. I don't know. Maybe. Snuggles the Eevee used Shadow Ball. It hurt itself in confusion. It's at this point I was starting to realize this lady thinks I'm an employee. How her tiny Team Rocket brain made that connection is a mystery to me. I clearly don't look like an employee. Karen used Roar. How do you not know? Are you stupid? Me. Snuggles the Eevee is no longer confused. Whoa, lady. There's no need for that language. This is a family store. Besides, I don't work here. I just came to get this plushie. Snuggles the Eevee used charm. It's not very effective. Karen. Don't lie to me. Of course you work here. You shouldn't be shopping when you're working. She used confusion. Me. What? Snuggles the Eevee is confused. I'm now starting to get mad. I just wanted to browse the store. Lady, what about me makes you think I work here? I look like a bum. Why don't you go over to the counter and ask the actual employee for your game? Leave me alone. At this point, employee, who has heard the whole exchange, finally finished up whatever he was doing and can finally react. He comes over. Employee, what's going on here? Karen opened her mouth to start yelling at poor employee. I've worked retail for most of my life and have dealt with Karens and entitled people a lot. I wasn't going to let her spew her BS. Me. This jerk assumed I work here. When I tried to tell her that I don't, she lost her crap. Karen. That's a lie. This bum just came over and pretended to work here. He stole my stuffed animal. I demand you throw him out and call the cops. Employee and I stared at her in disbelief. Did she seriously try that crap? Employee. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You were clearly harassing this customer. I heard everything that was said. Also, I literally just sold this plushie to him. He even has the receipt for it in his hand. Now please leave before I call the police. Karen is faltering now. But... Leave now, lady. Employee used Hyper Beam. It's super effective. Karen has fainted. Karen, while storming out of the store. See if I ever shop here again. And you can be sure I'll call corporate about the customer service in this place. Employee and I looked at each other and burst out laughing at the absurdity of the whole situation. Employee. Sorry about that, dude. Is there something in the store I can offer as compensation? Me. Nah, dude, we're good. I have a new story for Reddit now. Employee laughed, hooked me up with some store credit, and promised to look up the story and upvote it. I took my Eevee plushie and headed out to get something to eat, still trying to wrap my head around the stupidity of some people. Speaking of Pokémon, who's your favorite Pokémon? Please leave a comment letting us know. Mewtwo for the win. Entitled parents think I'm not normal because I'm not what they expected. And so they hate me. I, 26 female, come from an average South Asian family. Being born a female means you're either married with kids or still living with your parents at this age. I'm the latter. My parents have been told by my extended family that they're the best parents in the world because my extended family as adults are jerks basically. So my parents really take it to heart and are convinced that they are indeed the best parents in the world. I agree that they had gone through a rough time raising us. We're a group of 5, 3 girls and 2 boys, so it couldn't have been easy. And we're all nice kids as well. but they're very concerned that we're not doing the conventional, stereotypical South Asian kids thing like everyone else, so they believe they're still perfect. It's only that we're not normal. I'm the main target because I have my own life. I've never had a romantic relationship because I like being alone better. I didn't become a doctor like they wanted me to. I follow international relations and gender studies instead. Instead of kids, I have cats, whom I love like one would love their kids. Instead of getting a husband, I'm career-focused and pursuing education. And worst of all, when they try to control and subjugate me, I fight back. When they compare me to others, I compare them with the parents of the person/people they're comparing me to. I earn my own money and spend it on things I love, mostly my cats. I am a writer and I am a reader and I am a fighter. For them, all of this is just not normal. There's something wrong with me because I don't fit into the mold that they created, and me not fitting in would essentially take their best parents title away. But my father doesn't speak to his kids like they're humans. I pointed out that I didn't like the way he speaks to me, so he said I was disrespectful. My mother likes to imagine I don't exist and pretends not to hear me. She has sharp ears to catch if it's something about them, but if I'm talking about a concern, she pretends not to hear me. But still, they believe they are the best parents in the world and that there's something inherently wrong with all of their kids. Edit. Wow, I wrote this out of sadness and frustration yesterday night, and I woke up to see it as blown up. Thank you everyone for your kind words, but I think there's a few things to clarify. Sorry that I didn't mention clearly. 1. I do not have a degree in gender studies. I have a degree in social statistics, which can get me a job anywhere else but here. I work as a math teacher. I'm interested in gender studies, but I went to a public university thanks to free education we have here, and I was selected for social statistics, and my university didn't let me study anything else. Selecting your majors isn't simple here, especially if college is free. Also, for free higher education, you need to pass your GCSEs with good results, and I only did enough to get me into the social statistics degree. 2. In my country, moving out really isn't simple. This might sound strange for people like you, but here, most people own their houses. They buy lands and build their own, so usually it happens when people get married. They live with their husband's family for a while, build their own house. There are no affordable one-person houses, and shared houses are either extremely expensive, they're made for the foreign market, as in foreigners who live here, or people who earn a lot of money. But my salary is average, but enough to sustain myself and other means. 3. Someone told me that I don't contribute to my family. I take care of my younger siblings. Until 2 or 3 months ago, I used to spend on them, then my laptop broke, so I informed my parents that I had to save money for the laptop and cut down on the share I spent for my siblings. I bought a laptop recently. They're also very expensive here, so now I will be able to spend for them again. I love my younger siblings, especially the youngest. She's only 14, but she's amazingly talented. I helped my parents in raising her. You know, taking her to school and checking up on her education and all. I also used to be my parents' personal counselor sort of thing. You know, when they think you're academically gifted, they take your advice on everything. So I listen to their problems and all, help them when they want to make decisions on my siblings' education and all. 4. I think there's this misunderstanding that my parents and I hate each other. I actually love them a lot, and I totally understand where they are coming from. My dad had a rough time growing up, so did my mom, so they probably want us to have the best. They grew up in a society where being successful as a doctor or engineer or becoming a teacher and getting married and having kids is the normal, and they see lots of kids doing that. Initially, I want to stay with my parents the whole time because they really need me to stay grounded. Despite them thinking that I'm not normal, they're tired and getting older, so I told them I will stay and take care of them and the youngest until she's old enough. Rather than getting angry, perhaps them seeing that I'm not doing the normal things makes them sad, I think. I feel bad for rebellion sometimes, but I did everything that they wanted, got into a public university, got a good job. I want to live my own life. 5. I want to study gender studies for my postgraduates, but it's not offered here in my country at any university for some reason. So I do international relations for my postgraduates and learn gender studies in my own time. The reason is that I see a lot of GBV in my country, and all the things that I faced as a woman in the university as well as everything that I and my sister had to go through as well. I think I want to make a difference for other women, and I know I started late, but I'm trying my best. 6. I write fiction. I started at age 7, and for that I'm thankful for my parents, but their outlook changed on it because I don't write in my own language. I write in English, so they think it's not worth reading and all. But I have a bunch of people who like my stuff, including myself, so I'm pretty happy with it. 7. I have 7 cats. They're all rescues. My parents used to support me with them all the time, but when they get sick or when one of them passes, I fall into depression, and they kind of hate it when that happens because they think I wouldn't be like that for them if they get sick. I try not to panic when they do, and I try to do what's necessary. I really hope my parents understand that I love them and my cats differently. Besides, we have good Medicare here if they get sick, but not a single vet surgeon that I can trust. Reach class on time, but you hate the smell? I'll make you regret it. This happened years ago, 2006 to 2009 era. So I went to school with separate sections for boys and girls, but we weren't secluded completely and some elective classes were mixed. So there was this Karen teacher who really disliked boys. She always called us dirty and loud and yucky and would hit us and pinch us if one of us dared to talk back to her. We had her class mixed with girls, and they all would laugh at us boys for getting the drill and getting humiliated in front of them. The teacher actually enjoyed this, and she would purposefully find excuses to have us shamed for minor issues, like asking your friend for a pen while the girls yapped away and chatted with the teacher. She could not bear to hear us say a word. We were never given any opportunity to speak or answer questions, and she made sure the most difficult passages were given to read to this one boy with speaking difficulty. You get the idea. Basically, a jerk person. All of this behavior really upset me and made my blood boil with anger, but I never got any punishment because it was a language class, and I had always been the top of the class. Even her own daughter, who was with us in the same class, couldn't get past me. One year, we happened to have her class right after PE. Now, we didn't have any rules as to what was to be done in PE class, but we did get laps and push-ups after, which we were off to play cricket for the next 2 whole hours. The playground was a bit of a distance from the classroom, and it was shared by the high school and our middle school. It took about 3 minutes to reach her class from the playground. She hated that we were sweaty and reeked of body odor first day we came to class after we got our PE. She immediately went to the supervisor to have our schedule changed, where she got turned down. But she wasn't going to give up. I could see the hatred in her eyes burning brighter with every stinky breath she took in our class. Next, she implemented a rule saying that no one was allowed to be late more than 1 minute after the start, or they would be marked absent and have their marks cut. Fair enough, I thought. I talked to the teacher who had his period before our PE class, and he was willing to let us go early in exchange for working on a project for his class. I told the boys about my plan. We went to the ground half an hour early, played like heck as usual, got all sweaty, and then poured water all over ourselves to cool us off and rushed off to her class and were right on time, all soaking wet with soggy, disgusting, putrid training shoes, standing in a line in front of the classroom that only she had the keys to. We even took off our socks and kept them in our pockets just to make it smell extra bad. This was literal torture for her, as she had the full blast of the smell because it was a teeny tiny classroom and the boys were made to sit in the front as a rule for mixed gender classes. We made the excuse that we couldn't dry off because she marked us absent since we had to be at our lockers and the playground was not nearby and all of our lockers were out of the way. We kept at this for a full 6 weeks after, which she gave up and exchanged classes with a male teacher. We never gave him much trouble. He allowed us the keys and we were crisp and cool sitting in front of the AC ready for the class. Best revenge I ever had. Edit. It was 7th grade, and it was an Indian-owned school with kids from all over the world and Middle East. Am I the jerk for refusing to both cook and clean to cater to my husband's dietary needs? I, 34 female, and my husband, Paul, 35 male, have been married for a little over 2 years. We have no kids. Now, I know this is not how it is in every home, and I say do whatever floats your household boat. But here, if one cooks dinner, the other cleans. Turns out, Paul is not a gleeful cook and would rather clean, so almost all of the cooking falls on me, with the occasional takeout. And then lockdown. Paul works out of the home as an essential worker. I work from home. When it was September to October-ish, Paul comes to me and says he wants to eat healthier. Great, I love the man. I'd prefer he'd not have a heart attack. But Paul, my lovely Paul, of course had to take it to the 1003rd degree. He's trying all sorts of fad diets, and I mean all sorts. I've done my best, in my opinion, of complying with these ever-changing diets. It's only 1 meal per day, and besides, it can be fun finding recipes to match whatever weird criteria Paul has this week. This might be a me thing, but whenever I try a new recipe, or one I'm not too familiar with, I tend to be messier when cooking. I mean, it's one thing to kind of auto-cook the pasta recipe you've been making for years, and it's another to be like, Oh crap, why are there lemons on the counter? Here, let me scroll through this woman's grandfather's apple orchard essay to see where I use the lemons. Oh, it was step 3, and now I'm on step 7. What's this about flour now? So now there is lemon juice in my eye, behind my contact, and I'm trying to retro flour this piece of meat. This is the problem. Paul came up to me Friday night and said that he doesn't think it's fair that I am so careless with mess when cooking. It makes his job so much harder. I reiterate, the man said the word careless, both syllables, like he wasn't a human with an ability to logically guess the future consequences of one's actions. I took a second and said, before we continue, what do you see as the benefit of your bringing up this conversation with me? And Paul, God bless his little duckling soul, goes, well, if you would clean up, say, half the mess while cooking or right after, it would make my job so much easier. And I asked, will you do half the cooking? And he said, looking me dead in the eye, well, no. I know I can be messy with cooking, using multiple pots, /pans, /bowls, etc. Like I said, especially when I'm cooking something new. But in my defense, I have to learn something new all the time because Paul comes to me with things like, hey, I'm now going to try to avoid tomatoes and peppers because Tom Brady said they're intestinal or inflammatory or whatever. Who cares? My proposal was that we stick to the original. He either cooks or cleans. I don't intentionally make a mess, but I do intentionally try to meet his diet needs. He says that because I work from home for fewer hours, that taking steps to clean up along the way or take a first swipe at cleaning after cooking is a good marital compromise. I refuse. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is her husband? Please let us know.
I'd tell that guy to just make his own food.
You want to flaunt stupid rules at a soon-to-be lawyer? Two can play this game. I was in my final year of law school. As part of our curriculum, we had to accrue a certain number of hours of out-of-class course-related activities. It was a pretty high number of hours, but if you sort of planned to do them over the course of the years, it wasn't so bad. Anyway, there was a list of the activity types you could use to fulfill this requirement: attending conferences, publishing a paper, writing a report on a lecture, etc. But there were caps on the number of hours you could accrue in each category, so you couldn't just do one thing. The highest cap was for law-related internships, almost 50% of the total requirement. So I planned around that and got into an internship in my final year, which would get me above the required number of hours. You had to log your hours in an online system, which required you to fill the beginning and end dates for the activity and the number of hours you wished to log. As internships here usually don't have a fixed end date, only a maximum of 2 years, but the company or I could terminate it early. I thought I would just file the paperwork as soon as I finished the internship and it would be golden. However, as soon as I did that, the system rejected my request, stating that I should have filed everything before the end of my internship. I figured this was pretty dumb, since anyone logging internship hours wouldn't know the end date or total hours before the end of their internship. So I went to the university's law department, which I thought would immediately correct this obvious mistake, right? Wrong. I basically got told, tough luck, by the professor in charge, and that I should have applied with a fictitious end date and amount of hours before I finished the internship if I wasn't sure of when I was going to leave it. At this point, I'm super anxious, as this internship represents about 50% of the hours I needed to graduate. I wasn't going to be able to make up for that before my graduation date, and I had already passed the bar exam. In my country, you can take it in your final year of law school. And then it dawned on me. It was so simple, I thought it surely wouldn't work. If they wanted me to fill the online form with made-up data, then by all means, that's what I would do. I logged back into the system and filled out the same information for my internship, but I put the end date in the future. When the system approved the request, I submitted my paperwork with a note. As per instructions of Professor Z, I hereby request an amendment to the end date of my internship period according to the attached documents. Got full credit for the hours I needed, graduated on time, have been working as a lawyer for the past 10 years. Edit. Wow, I wrote this and went to bed and it blew up overnight. Thank you for the awards, people. You are amazing. For the people who are concerned that this report doesn't belong in malicious compliance, please read this subreddit's description. People conforming to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. You don't need to leave someone else in a bad spot for it to be malicious compliance. Am I the jerk for telling my friend she doesn't give fashion advice? She just tells people they're too poor? I have one of these friends who's trying to become an Instagram model who eventually has a lifestyle brand. At first, her unsolicited commentary on our clothes or makeup bothered me, but eventually I kind of recognized it for what it was and set it aside. But recently, she's gotten a solid following based on rating people's looks and giving makeover advice. Now, sometimes younger people on campus will earnestly ask her for fashion advice. One of her most common tips is,
Don't wear the same thing so often. By the time you wear an outfit a second time, there should have been enough time for people to forget you've ever worn it.
the problem is, that's only possible if you have a lot of different clothes to mix and match. Recently, I heard her giving a mutual friend some fashion advice, and it amounted to,
I've seen you in that before. Don't wear it again. It signals that you don't care about your appearance, and therefore yourself, if you don't take the time to have different outfits every day.
I happen to know that friend is going through a really difficult time financially due to lockdown. So I finally, after a lot of less direct comments through the years, just said straight out, after the girl had left, that's not fashion advice. That's just telling people they should have more money to spend on clothes, and explained a lot of her advice kind of translates to, you're too poor to look good, if you don't have the money to execute the tips. Most of her advice is that kind of thing though.
Buy a brand new name bag, wear more jewelry, don't use convenience store makeup, etc.
So it led to her being really hurt as I broke it down and she realized it encompassed most of her repertoire. I didn't mean for it to be hurtful, it just seemed like something she needed to hear since I think she means well. She says I insulted her livelihood and am just jealous of her skills / don't respect her as a professional. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I don't want her to hurt anyone either. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is her friend? Please let us know.
Her friend reminds me of myself in my younger years. Oh, how I wish Instagram had been around back then.
The avalanche of gift cards incident. This incident happened when I worked at a restaurant inside an amusement park around 5 years ago. One day, like normal, this nice elderly lady came to the register and asked me if she's allowed to pay for her food with a gift card. I told her yes, she can purchase the food with it, and if there's any left on the card, I can tell you if. Also, the remaining balance can be paid with either cash or credit. So she proceeded to order about $100 worth of food. She was with the family. Now, after what happens next, I should have said no in the first place. Why? She then proceeded to open up her purse and took out a huge stack of gift cards. Like for some reason, she had around 100 gift cards of this company in her purse. She told me that she buys the cards for her grandkids, and when the kids think they are done with it, they return the card to her. And she didn't know if the cards had money on them. So before she was going to discard them, she wanted me to process it to see if there's something in the cards, so it can be used to pay for the order. So me, since I told her yes, she started to give me the cards one by one. Some had just a few cents, some had a few dollars, and some had nothing at all. So after processing around 50, more or less, gift cards, she managed to pay for the whole thing with the leftover of all those cards. Now, the funny thing happens next. The computer/register thinks that every single card has a different owner. Therefore, it printed the same receipt around 50 times. The receipt that came out for each card would make the ones we get from going to CVS go to shame, or at least go toe-to-toe. Each receipt had all of the food, but also all of the deduction/transaction of every single gift card used in the order. The receipts came out one by one. After like the 10th one out, the lady stood in shock of how many receipts there were. The printer kept puking out more and more, to the point I was about to get covered with receipts if it wasn't for my supervisor and boss luckily showing up to see me trying to handle this predicament. They stood there with me, and like 5 minutes into this thing, the printer's still giving more receipts. Then the whole roll of receipt paper ran out and asked for more paper since it still needed to print more. We replaced it and it kept giving us more and more. Another few minutes and then finally stopped. So after this thing finished, I finally could get the next customer. Luckily, we have more than one register, so there was no downtime. But now it gets even funnier. When I took the next customer and I went through to open the menu button to input the customer's order, the computer/register decided to die. It just turned off. It didn't want to turn on. I checked everything. My supervisor and boss also did, and we couldn't find anything wrong. The register just went kaput, or decided it needs a break. But later on in the day, we managed to get it up and proceeded the day as normal. So yeah, this is one of the funniest incidents that happened to me when I worked at a restaurant. Am I the jerk for not giving my adult son a job in my company because of his attitude? My son, 26, male, is really hard to work with. I, 46, male, love him, but let's be honest, he is a jerk at the workplace. He does not know how to argue, and every little argument is like a state of survival. He does not understand where to stop. If he's arguing with someone, he will go any way to win that fight for him. His therapist/psychiatrist said he has borderline personality disorder and he uses antipsychotics, but it's still in a really uncomfortable level. I also raised him single. His mom was an addict and she is currently in a full-term care center due to severe disabilities after a traffic accident. My son only saw her twice in his whole life. My son never managed to hold a job other than working as an independent data analyst for pharmaceutical sector. He is really hard to work with, really rude, and he does not understand teamwork. I also manage a company in healthcare sector. We, me and my brother-in-law, have a company that produces spare parts for medical devices. This month, our company needed a data analyst, and my son had just had a contract finish, so he was free, but I directly shut down the idea. I love my son as a dad, but as a boss, I would fire him in the first week. He means trouble. I told all of this in executive board meeting. My brother-in-law agrees with me, but one of the board told this to my mom. She is also a close friend of mine and supported me in this journey, and she told it to my son. My son and I had a big fight, and he had to be hospitalized due to mental disturbance. Everyone thinks I still see him as a baby, and I'm trying to helicopter him. Edit. The board member is my mom's goddaughter and a real close friend of mine. It's the most normal thing for her to say to my mom. Also, my mom did our accounting for a while when we first started as a company, so I trust them both. Edit. Second, I'm not firing my executive board member, and it was just a genuine mistake she made. She never thought, neither did I, my mom would give this kind of reaction. We learned to be more discreet against my mom now. So, am I the jerk, dear folks? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk, or is his son? Please let us know.
That's how I feel working with you every day, Mr. Reddit.
Am I the jerk for allowing my cats to be cats? To give a little background, I just moved into a pet-friendly apartment 2 days ago. I have 2 cats. One is 5 pounds and the other is 8 pounds. This apartment is on the 2nd floor and all of the floors are hardwood. There's also no verbiage on the lease requiring tenants to put down carpets in these units. When I was looking at this apartment, the landlord stated that the downstairs tenant can be a bit sensitive to noise. At the time, I thought he was being a little extreme, but I've since learned that's not the case. On the day I moved in, the neighbor from downstairs decided to introduce himself. During his introduction, he mentioned that in the past he's had a lot of issues with noise from the unit I'm moving into, and that he hoped we'd be good upstairs neighbors. I told him that I'm generally a quiet person and that noise shouldn't be an issue. Well, today when I got home from work, I found a notice on my apartment door from management stating that I was reported for having dogs in the apartment, which is against the lease, and that if I don't correct the situation immediately, I'll be evicted. I find this shocking because 1, I don't have dogs, and 2, the landlord knows I have 2 cats. I immediately sent an email to my landlord stating that I don't have dogs and that I believe he put the notice on the wrong unit. I'm still waiting for his response. Cats being cats, they tend to get the zoomies every now and then, which basically amounts to them running up and down the hall and jumping up and down from the couches. Along with this, there's also jumping from the couches to the cat tree to the floor during the non-zoomy time and playing with their toys, which have bells and such, but should not be audible from the lower floor. To me, this is all reasonable noise considering this is a pet-friendly apartment. It's not like I have 2 obese cats either. They're both under 10 pounds and I keep their claws trimmed to limit the clacking and to save my furniture. Yesterday, before I received this complaint, I bought a 16-foot runner to go down the hallway so that the cats don't make as much noise while running. But regardless of the carpet, which will arrive next week, I feel that he's being unreasonable and has a warped perspective on what apartment living is like, especially for someone on the 1st floor. There will always be noise, and that's just a fact. I shouldn't have to feel like I'm walking on eggshells in my own apartment. Am I the jerk? Karen secretly films me jogging and shows video to my boss. I recently had an emergency appendectomy, and recovery has been slow. I had to take time off from my own athletics, but worse, from coaching in the kids' sports program I'm involved in. The experience made me step back and realize I really built my whole identity around being active and healthy. So the hit my physical abilities took as a result of being sick, plus the healing process, has made me feel lost. I've been working to regain the joy I used to experience from exercise without going, "Oh, you used to be so much faster with that," or "Your technique used to be so much stronger," or "You don't fit in anymore," or whatever else, and just enjoy myself regardless of the level I'm at. But ironically, the anxiety about not being able to do what I used to has made regaining those abilities difficult. It made me self-conscious about exercising in public spaces, but I was starting to finally get over it as friends convinced me the source of the concerns were all in my head. There's no way to get back to it other than training, so despite the anxiety, I started running again as soon as the doctors approved it. I went to the local track and just did a few slow laps each morning, building up speed every few days, and I've only just been authorized to add some sprints and body weight strength training to the mix. Occasionally, there were other people at the track, but I didn't really notice because I run with headphones on and try to zone out in these lighter sessions. But little did I know, my friends were wrong. It was not all in my head. I was being watched, and more than that, I was being judged. My absolute catastrophe level worst nightmare at this stage of building back my strength and speed. On Friday, I was setting up for practice at the kids program, and the head coach asked me into his office because a parent had a complaint. A parent I didn't know too well. Karen was there, and he said she had specific complaints about me. The meeting almost didn't happen because of Karen's initial refusal to put on a mask, required in our facilities for now. But eventually, her desire to tell on me for whatever she thought she had on me overrode her freedoms to infect everyone. I was a bit nervous, as is anyone being called to meet with their boss over a complaint. But I figured it was a classic case of, "My kid should start more," or "I know my kid tried out as a midfielder, but I want him/her to switch to defense." That kind of "rules don't apply to me" thing. But instead, I sit down in the office and Karen is playing my boss a video of me running on the track that she filmed from afar. It's surrounded by stadium-style risers. I was horrified, both because no one is ever totally used to seeing themselves on video and because I was just embarrassed about how slow I was. But most importantly, because why was a virtual stranger, I had met her personally maybe 4 times ever, filming me while I ran on my own time at a private facility? She then went on to explain that her 8-year-old son, one of the players on my squad, was lapping me in the video and insisting the coaches need to hold themselves to a higher athletic standard than the young players if they want to prepare them for college teams. Again, her son is 8. Apparently, her son would sometimes be running on the track while her older kid was practicing on a nearby field. I never noticed. The kid is still relatively new, and I don't pay much attention to the other people on the track. My boss patiently but firmly explained to Karen that my physical abilities are not the parents' concern, and all personnel are closely managed by the head coaches who understand each unique situation and what's appropriate, and that her son wouldn't be impacted. Karen then went on to say my being out of shape was probably connected to why I'd been taking so much time off lately. Technically, yes. It's because I was in the hospital, and complaining that the personnel changeover isn't good for the kids. My boss again reiterated that the head coaches hadn't changed or taken any time off, and that I was still one of the most skilled in the area I instruct, so this was not her concern. She asked if there was someone else she could speak to, but he explained that he was the owner and founder of this program, so no, there was not. I knew my boss was intentionally avoiding saying what had happened to me or even alluding to a health issue to protect my privacy, but I figured maybe being transparent with her would show her how ridiculous she was being and keep her tuition dollars in our program during a difficult time for sports clubs. But when I explained, she just turned to the boss and said, "Well, maybe you should furlough her until she's healed and bring on a healthy coach in the meantime, because my son needs someone out there who can keep up with him." My boss respected what I was trying to do, but made clear we weren't going further with that strategy to avoid setting a precedent of sharing coaches' personal circumstances. Telling her why people take time off or what their health status may be is not her concern, because the program manages that and makes appropriate decisions. She kept kicking up a fuss, but the coach finally told her that he had to get back out on the field, back to her son and everyone else's kids. She started physically leaving, but continued fussing about how she was not satisfied and would not be recommending us to other parents. Pro tip: not the way to conduct yourself with the people who make recommendations to scouts concerning family culture/team interaction. The coach wasn't preparing to leave. Instead, he stopped her in her tracks to tell her if she was found to be surveilling or otherwise harassing any staff members again, she would be permabanned from the program. No games or practices, no team social events, no presence in our buildings, and no clemency. So that was pretty satisfying. Her son is a good, average kid, and I'm glad the consequences were focused on booting her out rather than limiting his opportunities to have fun playing. So then we went out and had a great, happy, safe practice. This was still a pretty upsetting event for me personally though, and I'll never unsee that discouraging video of me running. But it was ultimately reassuring to know the other staff have my back. Leaving Karen in the dust is just another step on my road to recovery. Speaking of baseball, what's your favorite sport? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for telling my sister, try staying married longer than a year before giving me marriage advice? I know the title sounds bad, but give me a chance to explain. My husband, 30 male, and I, 30 female, like to make rules for our life. I find there's a lot of freedom in rules. I know I can do whatever I want inside a certain set of parameters, and there is no way my husband will have an issue with anything. Same goes for him. To be clear, I am more passive, and he is the alpha in the relationship, but I prefer that in a partner. That was one of the qualities that attracted me to him. However, we both make rules for ourselves. Tonight, we were having a Zoom double date for Valentine's Day when my husband said, "New family rule. From now on, we will only buy Perrier water instead of San Pellegrino." I laughed and said, "Seconded." My sister said it was weird that we made rules, and it didn't seem like it was a healthy thing to do in a relationship. That it's controlling. What if I like San Pellegrino? I explained that we both have to agree in order for a new rule to be added. She just kept saying negative things about my relationship and how I need to be a strong, independent woman that doesn't need rules. I got upset. I like the rules, and she was making my husband out to be some controlling crazy person that he isn't. I got so fed up with her badgering that I snapped and said, "Try staying married longer than a year before giving me marriage advice." She screamed in outrage and notified me that her daughter, my niece, was in the same room doing homework and heard me, that I disrespected her, and worse, did it in front of her daughter. I don't know. Am I the jerk? Edit. I was mid-responding to a comment post when the post got deleted, so I will share it here. They had some questions. Wow, I know this comment doesn't reflect me in the best light, but it's awesome. You went through a lot of work in reading through my previous posts and comments, and I hope you weren't bored to tears. I feel both honored and insecure at the same time. I will try my best to answer all the things you brought up. Most of my friends are/were guys from school. It's always been easier to make guy friends. After school ended, we never saw each other anymore in person, and they just became text/online friends. After getting married, my husband and I both agreed no friends of the opposite gender. I don't want to put all the blame on him for this rule, so the male friends I still had, I explained to them the situation, and they wished me the best in life. You are correct that my sister is aware of the rule system. I'm not sure which ones you guys will think are weird, because I thought the no friends of the opposite gender was normal. My parents are the same way, so I wasn't leaving out critical information on purpose. I use the term alpha because people understand what it means. I wanted to use the word dominant partner, but I thought people would think we were into something else, which we aren't. I like having a partner that's more dominant. My parents are both equal, and they have 4-hour-long arguments about things because they don't want to concede an inch of power. I don't care about the little things, and I'd rather have a happy life than fight every day. I don't know. It's just what I wanted, and if I'm not bothering anybody else, it shouldn't be an issue. You are correct that I married my boyfriend last year, so we haven't reached the long-term relationship of 20+ years. However, I'm not the one giving people unwanted relationship advice. All I was trying to convey in my snap was that she was in no place to give advice. He can be quite stubborn, but when something matters to me, I can and will use my voice to stand up for myself. Thank you for reading and for taking the time to respond. I hope I addressed everything. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know. Oh, I can't wait to read what our audience thinks about this one. You're not allowed to be in pain because you're scaring your grandma. So I was working for about 7 hours yesterday. I'm 16, and I had a really tough day. I work at a grocery store, and I was the only CC, my position, for about 3 hours. On a Saturday afternoon, for perspective, we need at least 3 CCs to keep up with all the work that needs to be done on Saturday afternoons, and I was the only one. So the work of 3 people fell to me. That's all the bagging, all the getting carts, the cleaning, everything. It was all on me. And it's the day before Valentine's, so we were even busier than normal. Oh, and it never got above 5 degrees Fahrenheit, and the wind chill kept us negative all day. All in all, I ended up spending over 2 hours outside, pushing carts like there was no tomorrow. The time I spent inside was mostly bagging for 2 or 3 people at once. So, as you can imagine, I was exhausted when I got home. I laid down in front of the fireplace and didn't move for about 10 minutes. My mom gets down beside me and tries to get me to stand up. She tells me that I'm scaring my grandma, who was staying the night at our place. My dad walks over, upset as heck, and practically screams at me to get up. I tell him, truthfully, that I physically can't move. He doesn't care. So I pull myself up, trying desperately not to pass out, and try to go upstairs to take a shower. Only after all of this do they bother to ask me what's wrong. I tell them, I feel like I broke my back. My mom tells me that if this is what I'm going to act like when I get home from work, that I need to quit. I tell her that this is pretty unusual, even for a Saturday before a holiday. For those of you wondering, there were multiple CCs scheduled for that afternoon, but the one that would have been working with me when I was alone got snowed in at a ski resort with no cell service, so she couldn't make it. She couldn't even call anyone, so she got marked as a no-show, no-call. That upset me because she texted me via Wi-Fi and I passed all that information on to the manager. So now I'm sore as heck and I'm pretty upset at the manager. Lucky me. Edit. For those of you saying that I'm working too hard, you're right, but I'm doing the work because they need me to do it. It's called work ethic. I'm not doing it because I'm getting paid through the roof. I'm doing it because I care. Working hard enough to be in this much pain shouldn't be cause for insult. Edit 2. Guys, I got a ton of people thinking that I'm complaining about the work. I get that it was too much for me to handle, and I get that the manager was being a jerk for not giving me at least a little help. But I'm not complaining about it. It's work. Sometimes there's tough days, and sometimes there's easy ones. Also, this absolutely blew up, so there's no way I can respond to everybody. But thank you for all of the support. I really appreciate it. And by the way, my back is fine. I just needed a few days of nothing to recover. See and say. I have plenty of horrible stories from working over toys and electronics at a large retail chain. I thought this subreddit would like this story. Names changed for obvious reasons. Cast. We've got me. We've got the clueless training manager. And we've got the frantic granny. So I apparently have some kind of death wish because I started working there the last week of October. It was a frenzy and I was put in charge of the toys and electronics sections, the two busiest sections for this time of year. Fast forward to Christmas Eve. By this time, I was pretty comfortable in my role in closing the store. I was working with clueless training manager for my training. He was about my age, 30s, but pretty out of touch with anything not dealing with hunting and sports. We're getting ready to close the store and I hear wailing. Not screaming, but it sounds like someone's world is ending. I round the corner and there's a woman losing her mind and poor training manager just looks helpless. I get the mental, help me scream, so I come up and ask, me, is there something I can assist with today? Frantic granny, I'm the worst grandmother ever. I forgot what kind of toy I'm supposed to get my granddaughter and they are on a plane. I can't call and ask. Me, oh no, can you try to describe it to me? Frantic granny, it's the one with the pictures. Me, that doesn't really narrow it down much. Can you remember anything else? It says the pictures. Now, while I am in my 30s, I don't have kids, but I can vaguely form a picture of what she's talking about. I can't quite name it yet, but I definitely recall it from my days of being a youth assistant in my kids' church growing up. I'm a heathen now. Training manager, I can walk you over to our infant section and we can look there and see. Granny cuts him off. I already looked there. I didn't see it. They are going to ban me from being grandma if I don't get this toy. I highly doubted this, but training manager asked her to humor him and they walked back over to the infant section. I had a hunch out of nowhere and walked to our tucked away retro toys section, and there it was staring me in the face. The CNC in all its glory. I could barely hide my smile as it hid behind my back and tracked them down to an infant. Granny, it isn't here, it isn't here, over and over. Me, ma'am, is this the toy you were looking for? She sees it and instinctively leaps at me, giving me a surprisingly powerful hug. That's it, that's the toy. Oh, thank you both, thank you so much. Tears of joy were streaming down her face as she continued to hug both of us. After a few more seconds of gratitude, she puts the toy in her cart and says in the coolest cool granny way possible, Granny of the Year, thanks to you boys. I never knew a $10 toy could bring someone that much joy. Huh, neat. Do you remember any retro toys that you loved when you were little? If so, what were they? Please let us know. I had this little electric piano that made animal sounds. Oh, I miss that thing so much. You want to change my hours without telling me? Okay, I'm gonna make you quit your job. So I worked in a fairly popular shipping company. It was Amazon. Amazon has this thing called flex hours, so if they wanted, they could add or take away an hour from your shift. That would be fine, but according to the Amazon rules, if the adjusted hours are not shown by the middle of our shifts, then we could follow our normal scheduled hours. Here's the thing, my warehouse managers were lazy jerks and hated doing anything except standing and looking pretty. Also, when they changed the flex hours, they wouldn't change it on your official schedule until it was too late to make a report about it. So I had a bit of personal time, which is the time we can use to get out of our shifts early or come in late. So I decided that I was going to leave work a little bit early because I was going to go into the city with my friend Peter. Now, I put in the request on the app that Amazon gives all of its workers for my hour of leaving early. Now at this point, it was the middle of my shift, so no flex was given to us according to our knowledge. I leave early, and then a few hours later I get a text stating that I left too early. This was false, because my end of shift would have been at 5:45 and I left at exactly 4:45. So I went in the next day and boom, walk into HR. I say to the lady, "Hi, you guys said I left early, but I didn't. I have the photo evidence right here of me putting in the request with no flex on my schedule." Then I got a,
"No, sir, the correct hours were posted."
So I show her a screenshot on my original schedule and a picture of the board where the adjusted hours are put onto, which was not showing adjusted hours at all. She said,
"Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure the managers made an announcement."
What did I do? Well, clearly I said, nope. Her final chance to get me was a really petty thing to say, but she said,
"You have no proof. These are the rules."
and oh boy, I did. Out of my bag, I pulled out the entire Amazon Warehouse Associate Rule Guide that they give every single worker a digital copy of. I turned to the part about flex hours and showed her that she was in the wrong as HR. She finally broke and gave me all my hours back without any write-ups, plus all the paid time off time I had used that past week. This happened like 20 more times after the fact. I was able to get away with it every time because I actually spoke up and had the proof to back me up. Mrs. HR ended up being so stressed out by it that she trained 4 new people and officially left the company in August. Because of my malicious compliance with the Amazon rules, they even changed the official policy on flex time because my reporting of it caused almost everyone to follow suit and also report their issues with it. Am I the jerk for leaving Zoom call with family after the way my mom talked to my fiance? My fiance, 41 female, and I, 28 male, have been together for 3 years. Yes, I know there's an age gap, and that's what the problem has been for my mom. The rest of my family were eventually cool with it once they got to know her. We're both very happy in our relationship, have lived together over a year, and 4 months ago I proposed. Just a few weeks ago, we found out she's pregnant and couldn't be happier. I'm beyond excited about becoming a dad and starting a family with her, which is what we plan to do at some point after getting married. We decided to announce it a couple days ago during a Zoom call with my family. It was my fiance and myself, my parents, my sister, my 2 aunts, and my brother. Everyone congratulated us when we told them, and my mom was the only one who was silent. I knew she always had a problem with my relationship because of the age gap, no matter how many times I told her I'm very happy and she's the love of my life. She never actually said anything directly to my fiance, but she's aware my mom's not a fan. This time, my mom practically blew up at her. My mom actually said, "How dare she trap me into this relationship?" As if we weren't already engaged. She just did this to make sure I had no choice but to stick around for the baby's sake. My dad tried to calm her down, but my mom was too upset and angry. My fiance looked really hurt, and I snapped at my mom. I said she had no right talking to my fiance like that and acting like it's on her that she got pregnant, as if I had no part in that. It got pretty heated, and the last thing I told her is I don't want to talk to her until she's ready to apologize and respect my fiance. Before anyone else said anything, I left the chat. My fiance was still really hurt, and it took some time for us both to calm down. Everyone else after that said I acted like a jerk when it's obvious my mom was just blindsided by the news and wasn't thinking right. That what I should have done was talk to my mom instead of rudely ending the call and making it awkward for them. My mom is still mad and won't talk to me, and my family is taking her side here for the way I reacted. But whenever I point out how she reacted and treated my fiance, she tells me I should have been more understanding of her feelings. So I don't know. Was I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Was OP the jerk or was his mom? Please let us know.
Sounds like Mom got a taste of her own medicine.
HR maliciously reject leave request. Ensuing malicious compliance results in a ridiculous amount of leave taken all within the rules. I work in a UK company that has a very good leave policy. I get 27 days annual leave, and I can also build up flex time and take up to 2 flex days off per month. In addition, due to a mess up in HR, I'm allowed to float all my public holidays. I was moved to a joint venture company for tax and legal purposes, and when they took me back into the parent company, they just adopted my contract from that company instead of getting me to sign a new one. One day, I put in a leave request for 3 leave days and 2 flex days. HR person denied it as she said it was against the rules to mix flex and normal leave days. The rules had changed some time ago to allow mixing, but HR person told me that it was against the rules. I took it higher, and her decision was overturned, but she did not like it one little bit. Thereafter, whenever I submitted a request with mixed leave, she rejected it out of spite, claiming that it was not in the spirit of the rules. It is an interesting view into her mindset that she refused instead of asking how she could do it too. She was all about stopping me, so the fight began. Easter was coming up, and I was due to take 2 weeks off. The middle Friday of my holiday was also the end of my leave month, and the Monday started a new month, so I put in for 2 public holidays carried over from Christmas, 2 flex days, and a Good Friday public holiday, and since the second week was a new leave month, I used another 2 days of flex, plus the public holiday Easter Monday and 1 day of public holiday from the start of the year. So my 14 days holiday in the sun cost me a single Friday, which is 5 hours of leave time. She went ballistic, but could do nothing despite trying to find any way to stop the request. As a direct result of her trying to stop me, I now make a point of building up and using as much flex leave as I can just to see her pretending to smile as I hand in my request to her directly every single time. She grits her teeth so much, I expect her to break a jaw. In 2019, I peaked and managed almost 60 days of leave, all thanks to her. Maybe I should thank her. Karen the thief gets caught, and now she's in jail. So I'm from the UK. So a store we have here is Asda, which is basically a small Walmart. I had just done some midweek shopping to top up on some essentials, which included some toiletries, most notably for this story, shower gel. I am in the car park outside the store when a woman pulls in. My Karen sensors were going crazy at this point. It's like she had won the Karen bingo in terms of looks and posture. She gets out of her car with her son, who is about 3 or 4, and spies on me and my clear plastic bag with shower gel showing through, and immediately runs to me so fast I can see her outline in smoke beside her car. Karen:
Excuse me, what is that in your bag?
Me: messages? In Scotland, we call groceries messages. It's weird, but who cares? Karen:
Well, I just spotted that bath soap.
She actually said that.
And was wondering if I could get a look at it.
The Karen alarms are going off at this point. Me: Why? It's in there. 3rd aisle. Karen:
Oh, it's just to see the brand. I've never seen that one before.
I show her the bottle, but hold on to it when she tries to snatch it like a wig.
Oh, come on. I can't even see the name that far away. Give it here, now.
Now, I've been on this subreddit for a while now, so everything in my body was telling me I was getting a story. In my twisted head, I decided to have a little fun. So I started walking towards the shop again, since I knew she would start a fuss and I needed witnesses for this. Me: How could you see it in my bag from your car then if you can't see it from 2 feet away? Karen:
I had different glasses. These don't let me see close up well. So come on, hand it over.
Another reach for the bottle. Another step away. She nearly fell over on her son, and I had to use all my might to not burst into tears laughing. Me: Well, you wanted to hold it? I'm sorry, I had no clue. I hand her the bottle. For reference, we are now about 10 feet from the entrance. Karen:
Oh, look at that. I can read it now. See, we could have avoided that whole thing if you weren't so dumb.
And with that, in true Karen style, she slowly, while still trying to distract me with small talk about my day, slides the bottle in her bag. Honestly, she deserves some applause for such a stunt. Me: Why did you just put that in your bag? Karen, suddenly looking shocked.
Oh, well, I assumed since you were about to buy all of those,
points to bag, which contains 3 items worth less than £5.
You could afford another one of these, so I could get this one. You must understand how hard it is for a single mom to survive without donations. I can't get work, so this would mean so much."
Wow, okay, she's going full wacko. This is definitely going to be a keeper. Me. I don't think that's how it works. You see, money is earned by working, and you spend the money on items that are yours. You don't steal. Am I getting through to you? Yes, I did the air quotes and explained this to her like the 3-year-old she was standing beside. Suffice to say, this set her off. Karen.
You insolent boy. How dare you talk to me that way? I just needed a simple piece of aid as a single mother. And this is how you treat me?
With that, she turns to walk into the store, hitting me with her arm and bag, enough to knock me off balance, but forgot 2 things. 1, she has shower gel in her purse without a receipt. And 2, I had some free time on my hands and a head for vengeance. Would it be fair to say that I stood at the entrance / walked around the aisles a bit, waiting for Karen, her son, and her stolen goods to hit the register? Yes, it would be. One thing to be noted was that the toiletries aisle was in disrepair, and so, as I noticed on my way around the store, had no camera or CCTV. You can probably see where I'm going now. Karen is walking to the register with some sweets, I assume for her son. It's go time. I calmly notify security that I may have seen that woman putting some shower gel in her bag. They thank me and watch her going to leave when they stop her. Security. Sorry, miss, but we have reason to believe that you have stolen merchandise. May we please see inside your bag? Karen.
What? I haven't done such a thing. You can't see in my bag.
I want to give this woman an Oscar at this point. Security. If you haven't stolen anything, then open your purse and we'll see nothing and you'll be free to go. Karen, as if suddenly remembering about the shower gel.
No, under no circumstances can you see in here.
Security then calls the police. I even thought this was a bit much, but security said it's protocol. Police. Ma'am, we need to search your bag now. Failure to comply will result in punishment. Karen.
Okay, fine. Here.
She hands over the bag, then immediately spots me by some clothes. Here she catches escape plan B. Karen.
Officers, that boy over there may have put something in my bag. He was hanging around and harassing me and my son the whole time I was in the shop.
Officers call me over. I basically say, heck no, and they find the shower gel. Karen.
See? He's trying to frame me. The one you want is right there.
A store clerk informs the officer that the CCTV in the toiletries aisle is broken, so the police are about to leave and let the store deal with the 2 of us, as there is no evidence, when part 3 of my plan comes to light. Remember when I said that I moved Karen to the front of the store, where CCTV is present? Me. Actually, I had a confrontation with Karen in front of the store that may explain this whole thing. Can we please check the footage, officers? I swear I saw a vein in Karen's head pop as she realized that she was in deep trouble. With that, she ran directly at me, like a bull seeing red, leaving her son standing there. Just saying, I'm a pretty skinny guy, so I was about to scream when, once again, my brain saved me. What was this expert plan? I stepped to the left a bit. Karen kept going. She ran straight into a register, immediately got winded, and kind of just stood there, glaring at me. Her face was redder than a tomato, and I just had a slight smirk on my look of surprise. We checked the cameras while Karen was put in a police car. Sure enough, the whole confrontation was plainly visible. She's now getting jail time for taking a bottle of shower gel. Me 1, Karen -2. Edit. Some context as to why Karen got jailed, as far as I was told. She apparently had caused some trouble in the store before. Antisocial behavior, an employee told me. So the police already had history dealing with her. She seemed quite unhinged, so this made sense. I understand that this is honestly quite unbelievable, but I'll answer any questions you have with the limited knowledge of her history in the area. Classmate is mad I'm forcing her to eat ethnic food. Go eat a loaf of bread. This happened about a year ago now when I was in high school. My calculus class was very chill, about 20 kids who were all friendly with each other, a laid-back but enthusiastic teacher, and a light enough workload that we could afford to goof off in class but still learn and do well. At some point in the year, I got really into cooking. It's my stress reliever. My family couldn't possibly eat the amount of food I made, so I started bringing it into school and hosting Friday parties in my calc class, with my teacher's approval, of course. Now, I'm Vietnamese and live in a predominantly white town. This is only important because it's meant that most kids from my town only ate American or European foods and weren't used to eating other ethnic foods. Last year, around Lunar New Year, I wanted to bring in some Vietnamese foods to celebrate. It's a very important time of year for my family. I ended up making a bunch of bánh de lon, a steamed layer cake, and a traditional Vietnamese dessert. Some of my friends from class found out I was going to bring in a traditional dish and brought in their own traditional dishes from their own cultures, whether they celebrated Lunar New Year or not. We had different Indian, Korean, Filipino, and Spanish desserts. It was great, and I was really excited that my friends wanted to celebrate with me. Apparently, there was an issue for one girl in my class. I would say bánh de lon is an acquired taste, so when not a lot of people ate it, I wasn't offended. I knew not everybody would like it. There was a lot of other food anyways. During our lunch period, one of my friends, who wasn't in our class but knew I brought food in, overheard a girl from my class complaining about the food while on the lunch line. Apparently, she was saying really negative things about how I forced everyone to eat weird Chinese foods. Later that day, I texted her just saying I heard she didn't like the food and wanted to know why. I don't really care when people don't like the food. I make it for myself and bring it in when I have extra anyways. But her calling it weird Chinese food when she knows I'm Vietnamese didn't sit right with me. Well, she texted back that it was rude of me to bring in weird ethnic foods that nobody could have liked except for me, and said I should have known better since most of the class was white. I told her that I bring in food to share because I feel like it and that I don't have an obligation to cater to her tastes. If she has an issue with it, she literally does not have to eat it, and other people can bring in food too. So if she wanted to, she could bring in something more to her tastes. After that, she just told me that I shouldn't bring in ethnic and foreign foods and stick with American foods because we're in America. Excuse me? Like, how much you want to bet if I brought in jambalaya, which originated in Louisiana, she would call it a weird foreign food? Fine. She only wants to eat American foods, then she can eat American foods. The next week, I brought in a bunch of oliebollen, a Dutch donut, and started passing them out at the beginning of class. When I got to her desk, I pulled out a loaf of Wonder Bread and plopped it on her desk, saying, "Sorry, but these are Dutch, too ethnic. Here you go, all American cuisine." Later, she texted asking what the heck my problem was, so I told her that almost every single food I brought in this year was ethnic, and that it ticked me off that she had only had an issue when it wasn't European. She's entitled to not liking Asian foods, but if you're going to complain about it being ethnic, then you better have that same attitude when the ethnic food is white. And especially, don't call another person's culture weird. She didn't complain about the food again. Also, before anyone comments, white bread isn't the only American cuisine out there. Here's a short list of what I've enjoyed making: tater tots, jambalaya, fried chicken, many types of pies, s'mores, and Philly cheesesteaks. America is a very diverse place, and that's reflected in its food. Happy eating. Speaking of food, what's your favorite food of all time? Please let us know. I'd do anything for some pancakes right now, with coconut cooked into them. Yes. Am I the jerk for not letting a customer use me to scare her kid into behaving? I work at a home goods store as a cashier, and this afternoon we had a woman come in with her young son. He was probably overtired, and because of this, he was screeching and throwing fits and touching everything, making messes. He was screeching so loud, I could hear him plain as day when they were all the way in the back of our store. Having worked with kids, this is annoying, but it doesn't ruin my day. I just ignore it and get on with my job. I stay behind the counter most of the time, and the mom and son come back up to look at the flash displays we have near the register. The boy was in rare form and kept grabbing stuff off shelves and trying to throw them in the cart. The mom was trying her hardest to corral him, but he was bored and probably sleepy, and his behavior kept getting worse. The mom looks at me. I lower my mask and give her a smile so she knows everything is fine, just to make her feel better. This woman turns to her son and says, "If you don't behave, that lady behind the counter is gonna get you and spank you." The boy looked at me and went silent and looked scared. I do look kind of unusual if you're not expecting someone like me. I'm a rather large woman, heavy and weight, and our uniforms are all black, so I also wear a black face mask. I also have hair dyed algae green and wear violet pink contact lenses. Not scary, but definitely unusual for our area. I could tell the boy was now fearful of me, and the mom just kept saying,
She's gonna get you and make you behave. She's gonna take you to the back room and make you work if you keep grabbing things.
That made me feel bad. I feel like she was using my non-typical appearance and my position as a cashier to scare her son because she thought I was an acceptable target. I don't want kids to be scared of me. I want to be a safe haven for kids in case they get lost or hurt. Someone they feel will help them if they need it. So I told the boy, "Don't worry, buddy. I'm not gonna get you. I'm really nice, I promise." I smiled at him. It seemed to make him feel better, but he went right back to messing around. The mom gave me this look like she hated me and said,
I just needed to calm him down. Thanks for nothing.
She grabbed him and left, leaving a cart full of stuff I had to put away. My manager asked me why the lady stormed off, was watching the cams, so I told him. He said it was bad customer service and I should have gone along with her. Was I the jerk for not letting a customer make a villain out of me for a kid? Edit. The lady also referred to me as the scary lady at one point, and by saying that I would make her son work if he misbehaved made me feel badly about my job, like it's a punishment to work this job. I love my job. Other than the manager mentioned above, this is a generally good workplace. My coworkers and I are close, and the customers are usually great. Well, what do you think? Should OP have gone along with what the customer was saying or not? Please let us know.
The customer could always learn to be a better parent. Like that's ever gonna happen.
Entitled Dude thinks he should use my laptop because I was at the library. Disclaimer. This happened in like 2019, and at that time I had a laptop for school. As I have an exam in a week, I went to the library to find the textbooks and other resources to study for it. It was a closed book exam, but we were allowed a 2-page singular cheat sheet, so I was planning to type everything on a Google Doc that my friends and I all did, so we can all print it out before the exam. So I was trying to finish the lessons that I was assigned to do the cheat sheet for. Luckily, I found a table at a secluded area of the library. I sit there for a good 45 minutes to an hour when I hear someone clearing their throat rather loudly. Enter Entitled Dude.
Excuse me, you've been using that computer for more than an hour now. You need to let other people like me use it.
Me. The library computers are on the other side of the level over there. Points in the other direction. Entitled Dude.
No, I don't want to walk all the way over there. Just give me this one.
Me. This is my own laptop. Get your own. This ticks him off apparently. He tries to take my laptop, which I moved out of the way, which caused me to push my stationery to fall on the floor, causing a loud thud. This causes the librarian to walk over. Librarian. What's going on here? Entitled Dude.
This girl is hogging the computer and not letting me check my emails.
Me. This is my own laptop, and not the library's. Librarian looks at the sticker-covered laptop. Yes, sir, that is her laptop and not the library's. I'm gonna have to ask you to leave as you are disturbing other readers. Entitled Dude huffs and walks out of the library. I left the library at about 5 p.m. as the library had to close early for their reasons. I saw this dude waiting outside the darn library. He stood outside the library for an hour. I saw him and decided to walk out the other way around the building and walked home. Halfway home, I had to make a turn at like a road corner with a mirror for like cars to see if anyone is turning. I look at it and found the guy following me. I sprinted across the bridge and all the way home. To this day, I don't know what the heck was this dude's problem. Like, he followed me out of the library because I wouldn't let him use my laptop. What the heck? Am I the jerk for throwing my sister out of my house at her own birthday party? I, 24, female, have 2 older sisters, X, 29, and Y, 31. I've been seeing C, 32, male, for a year and a half now. Yes, there's an age difference. No, it has not been an issue. We don't live together, and initially he resisted a relationship with me due to the age difference, and I was wary myself. But we had a lot of conversations and gave it a shot. He's honestly the best person I've ever dated. Communication is great. He respects me entirely, never raises his voice, takes me on dates whenever we can, cooks, helps around the house. Total dreamboat, basically. He's never made me feel inferior for being younger, never tried to parent or control me, encourages my social life, and is as supportive as he can be. Anyway, when we first got together, I was 23 and he was 30. Turned 31 a month or so after we made things official. I mentioned offhandedly to X that I was seeing someone, and she asked the standard questions. I was honest about his age, and she said, gross, lectured me about creeps, and I dropped the topic. My sisters and I are all best friends, and to keep the peace, I mentioned him at a minimum, occasionally mentioning a date we went on or a gift he bought me. Cut to last month. We're celebrating my sister's 29th birthday. Lockdown is a non-issue where we live at this point. I invite my boyfriend, and this is the first time he's meeting my sisters. So it's me, my boyfriend, my sisters, and their husbands. Things are going well. Boyfriend is charming the pants off of my brother-in-laws. We have some drinks, and then it starts. X starts off with casual questions that progressively get more pointed.
Do you usually date girls in their 20s?
Plot twist, no, he doesn't.
Was he attracted to me because I was younger?
So on and so forth. I finally just crack after trying to play off her questions with jokes to ease the tension and point out that yes, we have an 8-year gap. But her and her husband have a 7-year gap. X was 23 and her husband was 30 when they met, and she's a hypocrite for being a jerk to someone who's been nothing but doting and loving towards me. We argue. She says she's trying to protect me by trying to humiliate my boyfriend, and it culminates in me telling her to get out. Her husband was a designated driver and took her home. Y says she doesn't have an issue with what I did, but kicking her out of her own birthday party in my house was maybe a bit much, and she left with her husband. C is supporting me, but says maybe I should apologize just so I can keep the peace. He doesn't want to come between my sisters and I. X went off on me when I called her a week later, told me I was a jerk. She was doing her job as a sister. Y is just not even speaking about it because she doesn't want to take sides. I feel that I should apologize to keep the peace, but was I really the jerk for kicking her out of a party for her when she was that disrespectful? ETA info. I didn't speak to her privately, thanks Studio Apartments, but I did intervene, trying to deflect her attitude with jokes and steer conversation elsewhere. She kept talking over me and ignoring me, and her husband subtly trying to tell her to calm down. My sisters have met my boyfriends before, and in my personal opinion, we're asking him inappropriate questions, especially in front of family. And the implication I got from these questions was that she saw him as some weirdo who was trying to take advantage of me, which is not the scenario at all for us. Well, what do you think? Was OP the jerk or was her sister? Please let us know.
It's not easy having a Karen for a sister.
Entitled Mom and Entitled Grandma make me go to 2 different schools in different time zones and expect me to succeed in both schools. Hello there. I know the title seems ridiculous, but unfortunately it's true. So basically in 2019, my parents decided that they had 2 options. To move to their country of origin, my parents are immigrants. They had me in the country they were from and moved to the States when I was 2, or stay in the States until I and my sister finished high school. Because of a family emergency at the time, my parents found it best to move from the States. We decided to move there in June of 2020, but because of lockdown and travel bans, we weren't able to. So they decided to enroll me in a school that is in the place we were moving to, and because of lockdown, that school had online classes. I wasn't happy with this for 2 reasons. 1, in September, I would be starting my first year of high school, and I didn't want to miss the experience. 2, I would have to stay up all night to attend classes and meetings for the other school. But I didn't want to complain and make my dad feel bad, so I just kept my mouth shut and smiled. Fast forward a couple of months, we still haven't left the States, and now high school is starting in the US. My mom, who is a complete jerk, and nothing or no one can tell me otherwise, wanted me to also go to school in the mornings. Keep in mind, I haven't left the other school. So now I have to go to 2 schools. One in the morning, this is the US school, 8 a.m. to 2:10 p.m., and one at night, 7:30 p.m. to 11 p.m. Now you might be thinking that this wasn't so bad, but high school in the US is really stressful, and my mother signed me up for 2 clubs, and I also have football, so most of the week I wouldn't come home until 6 or 7. This went on for a while, but I finally decided to tell my parents that I couldn't do this anymore, and told them that I wanted to stay in the US, where I've been for most of my life. My dad understood, and he told me that since I hadn't said anything to him, that he thought I was okay going to both schools. Mother Dearest, on the other hand, made a big deal out of me not being able to take academic pressure. She and my grandma have been calling me dumb and all sorts of other things. Whenever I come into the dining room to eat, they talk about how I don't study for either school at all and I'm a waste of space and money, etc. You get the point. Am I the jerk for quitting school and making my mom upset? Edit. Some of you have been asking how I didn't pass out on the football field. Before each game, my friends would buy me an energy drink. It helped for like 45 minutes to an hour. I play safety, and my school has a rule that every player on the team has to be in the game for at least 10 minutes. Since I started as safety, I would stay in for about 20 minutes. Edit 2. Some of you suggested that I pursue legal action against my mother. If I do that, my mother will definitely divorce my dad, and due to lockdown, neither of them are able to raise 2 kids, me and my sister, alone, and I don't want to cause any more problems. Thank you though for all of your kind words and support. I have some more stories of my mother. If you guys want, I can share those too. Edit 3. I am a male, 15 years old. Edit 4. A lot, and I mean a lot, of people have messaged me asking what my future ambition is. I don't know why, but to avoid potentially more people asking this question, I want to become a doctor. But I'm not so sure anymore since my first semester of high school was really bad because I was trying to manage both schools. But yeah, that's it. I got a guest fired from his job. At the time, most of the guests at our hotel were businessmen. The guys from this particular company had been staying at our hotel for a while, and I got along very well with a few of them, including the person I later found out was the owner. One evening, probably around 5 or 6, after my manager had left, 3 guys from that company came down and wanted to buy beers and snacks. The first 2 guys, I sold them their beers and snacks, no problem. The third guy, I can't remember exactly what he said, but it made me mad, and I could tell he was already drunk, so I refused to sell him alcohol. In the state I live in, it's illegal to sell alcohol to an intoxicated person, so I used that as my excuse. Well, he did not like this, and he called me names, and just started yelling at me. I told him to go back to his room, but he wasn't leaving. Luckily, his 2 coworkers were still in the lobby and took him out of the lobby. He went back to his room and it was over, or so I thought. I got a call from his manager, who I knew, asking what had happened. I guess one of his coworkers called and told him what had happened. I explained what happened and told him how he's not allowed in the lobby if he's going to be drunk and disrespectful. His manager apologized and said he will get him on a new assignment and he will be leaving later this week. He told me if anything else happens to call him. Alright, sounded good to me. About 30 minutes later, dude comes back down yelling at me about how his manager called him and is making him leave. He then pulls out his phone and starts to record me on Facebook Live, saying how I won't sell him alcohol and calling me names. He then goes into the shop and on video steals beer from the cooler. He tells me he's going to get me fired and just started screaming at me again. Unfortunately, his coworkers weren't in the lobby, so all I could do was tell him to go back to his room. He eventually went back to his room. I look up the guest reservation and call the number on file for the manager I had talked to earlier to tell him what happened. I called and got the voicemail for who I thought was his other manager. I knew him as well. I left the voicemail explaining what happened and he called me back almost immediately. He apologized, and since it was late, he couldn't get him a flight that night to leave, but he had a flight first thing in the morning. I then found out that this man was actually the owner of the company. A few days go by and I get a phone call, and it was from the HR team. I explained the situation and they apologized. I then got a call from their risk management team and they apologized. Next time I was at work, all of the managers, owner, and employees came and apologized. The guy got fired, and every person in the company had to have a harassment class. Am I the jerk for declining lifts from my girlfriend after she said she didn't want to drive me to work anymore? Me, 25 female, and my girlfriend, 25 female, have a really good relationship up until now, and we never argued or disagreed. When we moved into a flat that me and my sister share, the arrangement was that she would drive me to work 8 miles away, on her way to work 30 miles away, and we would split the fuel, insurance, and any car repairs 50-50. I appreciated this arrangement, and I thought it benefited us. She told me she has started to feel different and now wants to stop driving me to work because she feels overwhelmed and like it's an obligation, which she has every right to change her mind about driving me. It's her car. Although it hurt my feelings, as I didn't realize how I depended on those lifts. I decided to buy a monthly bus pass, and this is where she is upset. The monthly bus pass costs a lot, and for me to get my money's worth, I have to use it more often, and that's what I've decided to do. Meaning, I'm taking the bus not only to work, but to the gym, supermarkets, and to town. We don't have restrictions where I live, and my girlfriend doesn't like this because it means she can't spend as much time with me, and she's now stated that she enjoys driving me to do my errands, but just not to work. But I've started declining all offers of a lift if she's not going to that place as well because I want to use my bus pass and I don't want to use up her fuel, which she will now have to pay 100% for. But she's thinking I'm being vindictive and punishing her for refusing to take me to work by declining all lifts. I'm conflicted because I don't want her upset, but I also don't see what I've done wrong. But she's been crying over it. So please, am I the jerk? Edit 1. We talked about it last night, and she now wants to drive me to work sometimes, But now, all times, so she feels like she has choice in it, and then I would have to start paying for some of the fuel and some of the maintenance. So use the bus half the time and lifts from her sometimes for a smaller percentage than me, and I don't think this will be beneficial to me at all money-wise, and would increase my costs as I've already paid for the bus pass. This makes me think that this is about the money and not necessarily about spending time with me. Edit 2. For people asking, my job is on the way to hers, except for like 2 turns. She moved in with me and my sister, and she's not paying any rent. I don't mind this at all, and unless we move, I wouldn't ask her to pay. Me and my sister are splitting 50-50 and all the expenses, and they get on very well. I'm still a bit conflicted. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk, or is her girlfriend? Please let us know.
Just give her a ride.
Don't want me splitting up my breaks to help coworkers? It won't happen again. Back when I was in my mid-30s, I needed some extra cash for a lawyer bill, so I picked up an extra job at a national chain hobby store that I won't name, but it has a rhyming 2-word name that lets you know it's a hobby shop. I chose here because they close on Sundays, and they happened to pay a couple of bucks above minimum wage at the time. It was perfect. I would work a few evenings during the week, then a full shift on Saturday doing just basic stocking and cleaning stuff. I didn't really care what I was doing there, and I ended up becoming everyone's preferred helper since I never said no unless I was in the middle of something or had a higher priority. I would even interrupt my breaks to help someone out if they needed it. When that happened, I'd note the time and be sure to make up my missed break when I was finished helping that person out. I even did this for the manager, let's call him John, from time to time with no complaints. It didn't bother me at all. I had my professional career and the temp work wasn't too difficult or degrading. I ended up working there longer than I needed to pay the lawyer bill, and I just stuck the extra cash towards paying off some other debt we had at the time. Everything was fine until one time John saw me in the break room again, taking what he assumed was another break. Naturally, he asked about it, and I explained that my coworker X needed my help with something, so I helped her and now was taking the rest of my 15-minute break. John didn't like that and told me that I could not split my breaks anymore. I had to take the 15 minutes all at once. Okay, if you say so. I didn't care, but it really impacted my coworkers, although they understood why I would not interrupt my break anymore. The real kicker came on Tuesday night when I was the only stalker working. The only other employees were 2 girls as cashiers and John. I had just sat down for my break a minute earlier when John poked his head into the break room to tell me I needed to go pull a chest off a high shelf for a customer. They had already paid for it and were waiting for someone to load it into their car. I turned my head so I could look at the break room clock and told him I'd get right on it in another 13 minutes. He said they needed me now, and I reminded him that I was not allowed to split my breaks and also noted that he was interrupting my break. To make my point even clearer, I stood up and walked around to the other side of the table so I could sit down with my back to John. After the 13 minutes passed, I went up front to find the customers so I could get their chest and stick it in their car. I didn't see John, but a cashier told me that they didn't wait and ended up getting a refund on the purchase. Not sure why John didn't get the chest down himself, it wasn't that difficult. Anyway, John wasn't too happy with me after that, and I didn't stay much longer either. I had earned my cash and didn't need that job by then. Finally, a story worth writing about. Okay, so I, like many others, have been working through lockdown in a major city as an essential worker, doing my best to be safe while working for a company that refuses to enforce safety. So once in a while, I treat myself to a trip to the big blue evil store for some extra treats on top of a few essential items. Only during quieter hours and only if it has been 1 to 2 months since my last excursion. I'm off work, but dressed in full-on leave-me-alone clothing, winter clothes, looking like a little haggard after a 10-hour shift, with headphones in and a heavy-duty mask. And I was trying to not have an anxiety flare because the lines were a bit long for my liking. I'm leaning on my cart full of stuff, now third in line at the registers, watching a YouTube video, when I make out a person in my 6-foot bubble in my peripherals. Now I'm used to men being gross, so I ignore for a second, but then they get closer. Pulls out my headphones. Hey, please back up, social distance. Also, pull your mask up if you have no choice to get in someone's space. Karen.
I was trying to ask if you work here.
Now, I literally had a moment. Sometimes the stories here feel embellished, and yet here I am, in line with a cart full of stuff, and this woman is getting in my bubble asking if I work here. Me. Am I wearing a blue vest?
No, but
Am I standing in line with a cart full of stuff right at the registers?
yes, but
I'm standing here with my headphones in, watching a video. Why the heck do you think I work here? I just back up and put your mask on properly before you find an actual employee. They wear blue vests and name tags, not winter coats, headphones, and carts full of stuff. The person definitely moved off after that. I was clearly in a grumpy, aggressive mood with no tolerance for stupid, even if it was an honest mistake. I blame the horrific handling of lockdown. No, I absolutely won't come with you to your car. So I'm 15 and female. This morning, my older brother called me because the key to his car wasn't working, electric short, and he wanted me to wake my dad up so we could bring him the spare. That I did. So my dad drives us to this 7-Eleven parking lot that my brother is stuck in and hands me his card, telling me to grab him a Coke Zero and get myself something to drink and eat. It's 7:30 a.m. I'm wearing fuzzy slipper boots, leggings, a sick Persona 5 mask that I sewed myself, AirPods, and a Marvel hoodie. I have cotton candy pink hair, and I wear glasses. I'm also 5'1" and look way younger than I actually am unless I'm wearing makeup. In comes Bill. Bill is somewhat over 6 feet tall and large. I don't know if it was fat or muscle, but he was big. I don't have social anxiety. My dad is a musician, so I'm used to being approached by people that I don't know and can generally hold friendly conversation, help people who need help, stuff like that. This guy is not wearing a mask. He looks like if Guy Fieri, the dude from Duck Dynasty, and Joe Exotic had a 400-pound love child. He's wearing a sleeveless muscle shirt with the words, "Keep America Great" on it and a graphic of the president holding a guitar. I'm standing in front of the fridge door that had energy drinks in it when Bill over here taps on my shoulder. I turned around. In this moment, I felt like Derek Shepherd when the semi-truck was coming. Pure fear. The conversation went as follows. Me. Hey, sorry, am I in your way? Bill.
You're awfully young to be working here. Can I see your manager? I don't think pants like that should be allowed on the job.
Me, now very confused. I'm sorry, I don't work here. Do you need help? I can get an employee if you need. I picked up 2 orange monsters. My AP test is on the 11th, and I need to get my sleep schedule back on track, so I'm pulling an all-nighter. And moved 6 feet away from the guy. I already had my dad's soda tucked under my arm. Bill.
Are you one of them girls who do free car washes? Can you clean out my passenger seat and come home with me? Nobody'll notice. Just say you're on your break.
That escalated quickly. For context, I'm black/white/Hispanic mixed, but didn't end up with curly hair or blue eyes. I have brown eyes and very thick and wavy dark brown hair. Me. No, I'm sorry. Let me find you an employee. Bill.
No, it'll be just fine.
Bill then reaches for my free hand, which I very sharply pull away. I started walking to the front of the store and he follows a few feet behind. I put my things on the counter and start to check out. Bill is standing like a foot behind me. Employee. Good morning. Did you find everything okay? Me. Good morning. Yes, I did. Thank you for asking. Bill, now yelling.
Excuse me. I can see that you're friends and all, but your employee has been absolutely disgusting to me, and I want my gas pumped for free.
Employee. Sir, I'm sorry. She's not an employee. She's a customer.
No, she's not. She offered to help me in the aisle back there.
Sir, that was probably just her practicing common courtesy. Me. Is your chip reader working or should I swipe? Bill.
I want your manager now.
Employee. Sir, I'm the only person here right now. The manager will be here at 10 a.m. I'm standing there holding the card and waiting for this dude to back off and grab a little tube of donuts from the counter for my troubles, then place it down since I hadn't paid yet. Bill then huffs and storms out, gets into a 4x4 with wheels as tall as me, and very aggressively drives away as Hotel California blares from the speakers. I could hear it from inside the store. Employee. The chip reader works. Go ahead. The total is $11.24. I left and found my dad, handed him the bag, and told him my tale. We leave. On the way home, we passed Bill's truck. I don't think he saw us. I hope he didn't. We were in a Prius. 4x4 versus Prius never goes well for the Prius. So, Karen, what did you think of today's stories?
They were horrible. Horrible? How dare you?
These were some of the best we've ever read.
Oh, shut up, Mr. Reddit. It's ridiculous what people like myself have to go through. Dealing with stupid people like yourself and your subscribers.
Look, Karen, You can say whatever you want about me, but don't you talk about my re-army.
Re-army. Most of your viewers aren't even subscribed to your channel. 70% if I'm correct.
Well, I can't argue with that. That's true. Most of my viewers don't actually subscribe for some reason.
It's because you're stupid, Mr. Reddit.
No, I'm not! Alright guys, let's prove Karen wrong by making sure you're subscribed to the channel and turn on notifications.
They're not going to listen to you.
And if you'd like me, or Karen,
What?
to record a special message for you, come visit me on Fiverr, link pinned in the comments below.
Never.
And join as a channel member today, and Karen will give you a special shout out in the next video.
Like heck I will.